All right, it says we're live, so we'll see if we are here. Welcome, everyone. I have a guest tonight. Oh, hey, I even got it right. He's on that side. Let me actually change this. Zoom in just a little bit on us. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome. This is Mr. Drew Crenshaw. I met Drew last year, all the way out in California. And did we hang out much, Drew? I met so many people. I know I met you. I don't think we hung out that much. Because I don't think you came down and hung out with us at the pool.
No.
Yeah, it's all good. So I met Drew. I met a bunch of guys out there, guys and gals. But Drew did something pretty cool. He went out there this year and he won the thing. The first front wheel drive to do that. So I had to have him on this week because, well, we had to have it on. Now, I do want to show you something funny. I don't know if you noticed what I was wearing, Drew, while we were talking. So I've got an Olgas Dream shirt on, right? But it has a number down there. This is the only Olga shirt I have, and it happens to be last year's winner, Mr. Bowman there. So, who finished second this year, I should point out. You had him covered. You had him covered pretty good this year, but he did finish second. So, all right. I need to double check something. Guys and gals, if you're watching, say hi or something, because we haven't had any comments pop up, and that usually happens. So, okay. All right, Drew. There, John commented Drew is bad fast. All right. Well, now that I've talked for too long and you haven't said much, Drew, why don't you go ahead, tell us just a little bit about yourself, what you drive, because otherwise everybody's going to ask, what car did we win with? Engine combination is key as well. And just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you drive there.
So I drive a 1991 Honda CRX. It does have a B series in it. It just has a completely stock Type R motor. There's nothing special done to it. It's not aftermarket or anything else. It's on a built motor. It's nothing in that sort, so which is crazy because everyone thinks that you have to have a crazy horsepower to be fast, which you don't. So it just has a GSR transmission in it with a little bit different final drive in it. Nothing crazy. It meets like Madera Speedway rule specs, so which is like very limiting compared to all the other classes out west out here. So we were very, very basic front wheel drive car, to be completely honest. Nothing crazy at all. So,
if you don't mind me asking, what's it weigh by chance?
So at Olga at Madera, it weighed 1950 is what it said. But we know that the pre-Olga race, which was in June, we rolled across the scales at just over 2,000 pounds. So it all depends on like weight or like fuel and stuff like that. So the scales at Madera were about 100 pounds ish off. So usually we roll it before qualifying. If we scale, it's about 2,050 pounds is about what she weighs. So
okay. I'm sorry, baby. We got to cut more weight out of you because 2250 is a little heavy. Okay, I'm just telling you now. Sorry, that's the new build that's hopefully going out there next year, and I was aiming for 2250. So sounds like I got some more work to do, though. Oh, that's okay, because I should hopefully have a little more than stock GSR power, so maybe we can offset the weight. So. What I am trying to do is I realized I forgot to do this beforehand. So if I look like I'm not paying attention, it's not on purpose. I'm trying to pull up the shot here so I can actually put a picture on the screen of your car. So I am trying to do that. Don't think I'm trying to ignore you or anything like that, or nobody else think I'm trying to ignore them either. I just realized that I hadn't done that yet. So, all righty. Now, where do you hail from? Because that's kind of the fun part of this too. You're not from California. Where do you reside at, sir?
So I live in Napa, Idaho, which is about 25 minutes from Boise, Idaho. So our home racetrack is Madera Speedway. is where we typically race. We actually travel all over the country and race, which I think we'll talk a little bit later on in the show about that. But yeah, so my home track is Meridian Speedway. I originally started out as Rocky Mountain Raceway down in Salt Lake City, Utah. That's where we're originally from. I ended up actually starting out drag racing is where I started with all this. So,
okay. But what did you start out drag racing on? What kind of cars were you racing?
It's kind of obvious. Honda Civic, four-door Honda Civic. So we actually held the record for the fastest single cam Civic in the country back in early 2000s. I went 1090 at 127 miles per hour way back in 2002. So that's
naturally aspirated?
No, turbo. It was
okay. I realized as I asked that, I was like, I know the single cams can do some stuff, but I don't know how you're trapping 130-ish with a naturally aspirated single cam. So it made sense
right.
As soon as I said it okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm from, Napa, Idaho, originally from Provo, Utah. We moved up to Idaho about 12 years ago. So.
Okay. Mr. Travis Black commented, damn, making me feel heavy at 2750. How big do they make hole saws? Well, you got to realize like the curb weight of a CRX is like 1,700 pounds, from the factory. Like that's part of it. And honestly, these Neons, a lot of the autocross guys are running them at 2,500 ish. So even if the other thing, Drew isn't as heavy as I am. When mine's at 2250, that's trying to put a 250 to 260 pound driver in there too. So, if I was a svelte 165, 170, I wouldn't have to use so many hole saws. So, so how long did it take you to get down to Madera? How long is the drive for you from up there?
So with us to get down there this year, it was like right at 13 hours, but we drove straight. So like I worked Thursday. We left right after work on Thursday. We got out of there at 8 o'clock. We pulled into the track at 6:45, 7 o'clock is when we pulled into the track. So there was already a couple other cars just hanging out there. So, but.
Mr. Brian Bowman, what's up? You should tell Sean he's being represented. I'm just saying. Okay. So here we have on screen, we have the Zero, we have the CRX. This was the winning car. This is not the car you were driving last year, though, correct?
No, it wasn't. So last year, the car that I raced last year, the Friday before we practiced at Meridian in a race, and we actually blew up the motor Friday. So that's where the 68 car from Don Trafford that we borrowed ended up being out there, the other purple Honda Civic.
Okay.
For Mike Anderson. So yeah, so this is my car. It's named Snowflake. It actually raced out at Madera 3 years ago. My neighbor actually owned the car, drove it. Best time he's ever had in his life racing. So it's actually his second time to Madera. So
nice. I was glancing here. Facebook used to have a thing where you could see like the album of pictures. So I kind of got to go through these. I'm trying to find the 54 you said was the other one that was with you guys here?
68.
68. Okay. Hey, cool. Look what I found. 68. Okay. Open this one up. This is the other thing we'll do too, guys and gals, is we'll kind of show you some of the other pictures. I should point out, these pictures are provided by Patriot Media, who is out there taking pictures. That is who these pictures were from. I would tag Patriot Media, but I'm using StreamYard because I have a guest, so I can't do that on here. It doesn't translate. But Patriot Media, if you guys go like Olga's Dream 100, the Facebook page, they posted Patriot Media. They shared a link to it in that. Go at least go like the page. It's kind of the least you can do. Oh, hold on. That wasn't the tab I wanted to share. This was the tab I wanted to share. There we go. That way, none of my buddies send me a Facebook message that's inappropriate. So, but yeah, this is the other team car that went.
Yep.
And Josh Atkins says, "Hi, y'all. Nice Honda." I got to admit, the Hondas are fairly well represented at Olga's. Fast Freddy set fast time for the second time. He did the second time, and he did again this year. And the first front wheel drive to win. CRX. So the Hondas are pretty. Which last year Josh Cross, I think, finished third in a Honda. So at least the 2 years I've been, and Justin Carson last year in an Integra Honda set fast time. So, man, I definitely got. You're going to California. We got to show these guys that there's more than just Hondas, okay? Just pep talking it. So, so my dad wants to know, and I was going to ask you this as well. What, and you can say if this is some secret stuff, feel free to gatekeep it. That's fine. But what gear ratio are you running? I would prefer if you had the overall final so that I can convert it, because I don't know what the ratios in a GSR trans are. But what final drive were you running, and what tires were you on? Because the Olgas Dream has a lot of different tires, because a lot of different tires are legal. So what ratio were we running? What tires were we running out there?
So for this car, we run the 498 final drive. So really close to the stock Type R final drive, which is like a 4.7.
Okay.
And then as far as like tires go, we run just the Hoosier, the 700s. So a 23.0 by 8.13, and then we also do the 22.5, 8.13 on the inside. So
okay, I got to figure out, because we don't have the 700 around here. That's not a tire we run. We run the 790 or the 795 if you dislike going fast. So that was one thing that I have to figure out before I tow 36 hours away is tires, because the last thing I want to do is come out there and bring an absolute weapon with me and then put it on some ballet slippers. So that's the one that I got to figure out before we come out there. Luckily, Hoosier happens to be a lot closer to me than you guys, so I might be able to get them to help me out by telling me, So yeah. And yeah, Dad wants to know how the 700s compare to a 790. I'm assuming that you have no idea, because you guys don't do the 790 out there. So, because it's one thing that I found interesting in talking to guys and gals while out in California is just how different front wheel drive racing is out west. Because around here, front wheel drives, since the inception of front wheel drives, essentially, in the mid 2000s or so, they've just kind of been their own thing. It's always just been front wheel drives. There was mini stocks, there was the rear wheel drives, the Mustangs, the Pintos, all of that. And then front wheel drives came out. And in talking with everybody out there, it's kind of the opposite. It's a lot of rear wheel drives, and front wheel drives are starting to get mixed in. And so that was interesting to me. That's why, because the 700 is a mini stock tire. There was another tire that Bob mentioned that's a mini stock tire. There's a lot of mini stock stuff, and the front wheel drives are kind of being bumped in with that. So that was something that was definitely interesting. Is that how do you feel about running against all the rear wheel drives like that? Is it just so normal to you that it's not a big deal, or is it kind of how does that work for you? Do you like it, not like it?
So it's like kind of in the interview when they were asking me questions about being the first front wheel drive to win the Olga. I'm like, it doesn't matter for front wheel drive, rear wheel drive. Like, honestly, the cars are so comparable for the most part that it doesn't matter as long as your car's set up good. Like, you can make it work. So I definitely the Mustangs, the Northwest mini stock series, their Mustangs out there are super hard to keep up with. Like, they're super fast. So definitely they have an advantage, but honestly, a front wheel drive set up correctly is just as fast as any rear wheel drive for the most part. So
I do know, talking with Bob, the big thing that he did that sounds like it really leveled the field was just changing the engine rules a little bit, where the Mustang guys, the rear wheel drive guys, they went from being the roller motors, I think, like the roller cams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When they disallowed that, it really reined them in. And to show you guys how even the competition really is, Freddie Vigil, Fast Freddie set fast time at the second race. He set fast time this year. But I think a rear wheel drive, actually this year, Ryan McCall, Cavalier, was second quick. But you had a rear wheel drive right there. Sean Bowman won last year in rear wheel drive. Terry Anderson won the year before that. Terry, which Good heavens. Terry, if you watch this later, man, I'm sorry that this year sounds a lot like last year was for you too, with all the bad luck. But it was really interesting to me because it was very close. Because mini stocks around us, I would be curious how they would compare to the roller motor mini stocks out there. Because our mini stocks don't really have the engine rules like you guys do. So we fight that. Like, they are much more race car than like Olga's is allowing. But it was really tight racing. Like, it was a lot of fun to watch. So when you went into this thing, where did you qualify at? Like, that was the one thing I missed too, was qualifying. How well did we qualify this year?
We qualified fourth, which is actually like one of my best qualifying like ever. Like in any class that I've ever ran ever, I got fourth. So fourth quick. So which is was pretty epic in itself because it didn't feel fast. Like, if that makes sense. Like, it always seems like the faster you go.
How quick did you go?
16:33 or something like that. So, but I thought I totally botched it. I came out of 4 and I went straight towards the wall and it was screaming the tire.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we're done now. And they're like, I pull in, they're like, dude, you went fourth quick. I was like, what? I'm like, sweet. So
now, if fourth is your best qualifying effort, is this where you're like my dad that can't qualify to save his life if it's single lap, or is it one where you're a top 5 car but not a top car? Is it qualifying, or is which scenario is it here?
I'm horrible at qualifying. Like, I don't know what happens. Like, I botch qualifying every single time. I get in my head. I don't know. I'm like, it was all good this weekend. Like, the juju was in the right place this weekend. Yeah. So
I find people interesting that do that, because I love single car qualifying, but I love group qualifying, and I love them both for different reasons. Because single car qualifying, I don't have to worry about some Yahoo who has no idea what he's doing in front of me. I know it's me. I know I have the whole track. I can do whatever I want. I love group qualifying because I have 8 to 10 laps. So if I miss a corner, it doesn't matter. I can pick it up the next lap. So I like them both for different reasons. But like my dad can go out and practice and run, he'll run a 16.8 at a track, and he'll run that and practice, and 4 practice sessions he'll run a 16.8. He'll go out to qualify and run a 17.4. It's like, is the car bad? He's like, no, I screwed up. And it's like, come on, it's just 2 laps. So my dad's right there in the boat with you. He does not do single car qualified well. So all right, so we're fourth quick. And how did we finish last year? Because we were out there last year. We had the Civic. How did we finish last year?
So last year, lap like 43, I pulled in because I lost all fuel pressure. Justin had already broke his car. So Justin pops my fuel pressure gauge had ejectocito off the fuel rail. So he grabbed it, put it back on, sent me back out. And I think when halftime started, I think I was still like 7th overall, even pulling in with him fixing the car. We were having like fuel pump issues all weekend. So we went back out.
I do remember you working on the car all weekend last year. Like, I do remember, certain cars, and the Zero, it was plain. Like, it was a very plain car, but it was fairly quick. So I remembered the Zero, but I do remember you guys working on it and having issues. So
the fuel pump finally died. So we just like railed the fuel pressure, and on the restart, the car didn't go. So when they threw the green again, it literally, I got like 3 laps or 4 laps and pulled off. So, because it was like dangerously slow. So there was no reason to limp around. So.
And one thing that I actually appreciated about all the guys when I was out there last year was, even at 100 laps, if you could fix the car and go back out for the last 20, even if you missed 20, 30 laps, you could improve 5, 8, 10 positions because people were dropping in and out. So there was that work going on in the pits. But one thing that I appreciated as a racer watching it was guys weren't doing that, where you're getting lapped every 2 or 3 laps. Like, guys that were that slow were pulling off to work on it. So props for that one. So David Brown says, what's up? So last year we had issues, only make it slightly past halfway. Did that happening last year, did that affect your strategy or prep or anything for going into this year's race? That you did something different, better, worse? How are we setting up based on last year for this year's strategy?
So honestly, like the best thing that happened was the prequel of the Olga race. So they did the
Mm-hmm.
two show, they did the one at Meridian and the one at Magic Valley Speedway. So that
Mm-hmm.
was actually a great opportunity for us to get ready for this race. So I actually ended up racing Justin Carson like door to door for probably 20 laps. Like it
Yeah.
legitimately, it felt like forever. We'd switch back and forth. Like it was awesome. Again, like on the interview at the halftime thing, I was like, something always happens with one lap to go. With one lap to go at Meridian.
We were going to bring that up.
Yeah, at Meridian, my rear trailing arm bushing, like the last 5 laps, my rear trailing arm bushing ripped out of the car. So I would go into the corner and the car would not turn. It would either turn too much or wouldn't turn at all. So one of the two. But we actually got to practice a little bit before. We didn't build the car the week before also. That's another a little bit different thing that we usually don't do. So we actually got a race the Friday before. We actually went to Ola 2, and that's when we blew up Mike's car, the 68 car. So which was
Gotcha.
my car I raced last year. So
Gotcha. I was looking. I was looking at the stories that Justin posted, and he actually showed the last lap as it was happening. And I thought he had posted it on Facebook. So that's what I was looking to see if we could
it's
toss
on my
that
Facebook.
up.
If you
It's
look
on
my
yours. Okay. I do want to say this too. Justin, I talked to Justin a lot last year. Super nice guy. I was going to apologize to him because I think I jinxed him last year because, well, he kind of won everything. And then before the feature, I was like, hey, or before the like heat or whatever, I was like, hey, you're gonna let somebody else win something? And he goes, no, not if I can help it. And then he broke for both races. So I was going to apologize for putting a hex on him or something. But his Integra, I got to admit, was one of the nicest looking cars. And he set fast time last year. So going door to door with him is definitely something that I can imagine how well that set you up for the weekend, knowing that you can go toe to toe with a guy that set fast time the year before. So what was the strategy this year? You've got 100 laps, but you've got a break halfway. What was the strategy this year?
So honestly, like I really didn't have a strategy. I kind of saw where I qualified. I saw who was in front of me. I was like, dude, I'm like, he's in a giant Mustang. Like if I stay close to him, like we can get through the field and we'll be good. So I'll let him make all the risky choices to get through the field. And where we end up is where we end up. So honestly, that's kind of where it was. Like I don't know, a lot of the people afterwards like, hey, were you driving it to death? I'm like, no, I was just going out there having fun. Like I was just driving what I had. I wasn't trying to overdrive. I wasn't trying to set quick time. I wasn't trying to do anything like that. I was just out there. I just wanted to put laps down, be consistent, stay close to the same times as what I'd been running all day. And thank heaven it paid off. And we'll probably talk about that here in a little bit too. So if I would have done that, it would have been bad.
Yeah. That was the fun part with me last year, walking around with a GoPro, talking to everybody. And listen, guys and gals, if you were out there last year, I'm still making the video from being out there. I've actually been working on it some. I was trying to work with Bob to get pictures from the photographers that were out there, and there's just miscommunication, and I haven't got the pictures. So the video I have in my head that's this perfect video isn't happening, and I'm working with what I got. But the cool part last year is I walked around, I asked everybody, and I'm sure I talked to you, what's your strategy? What's your strategy? And almost everybody says, we're just going to ride for 50 laps and try not to go a lap down, and then we're going to race for 50 laps. And then it seemed like some guys had the 50 laps in reverse and they were racing the first 50 and we're going to coast the second 50. So that's why the strategy for me is interesting because it's a 10-minute break in the middle, 10 to 15,
Yep.
10 minutes. And you get to make any adjustments you want on the car. You can swap tires, you can add fuel, you can adjust your suspension, whatever you need to do. I've never had that. Anytime I've ever had like a break, it's a fuel break, and I've only had like one of those. But 100 laps, 50 and then 50. Did you make any changes at the halfway mark other than just adding fuel?
So actually, Terry came and added fuel into my car for me. So that was pretty awesome. We didn't do anything. Honestly, like I had one of Josh Cross's guys come double check my lug nuts. Terry put fuel in it. Everyone asked like, how's the car feel? I'm like, we're doing good. And like, that's it. I did like a couple years ago, the second year I ran it when I actually got fourth that year. We actually rotated the left rear tire to the right front, so that we had a fresh tire for the last 50 laps. But I found over the years of racing with these tires, you really don't have that much fall off of the tire after the first like 2 scrub sessions of them. So like the race that Justin and I ran door to door, those tires were 3 years old. Like they weren't new tires. So
So you're telling me Hoosier makes a good tire that's the 700 because it's not the 790 anymore.
So it all depends on how hard you are on tires is honestly how it is. So if you have good stamina with the tires and don't overdrive the car, like they last a really, really long time. But also they don't if you overdrive the car.
We had the 790 for a long, long time. I started running the 790 in 2009. That's when we first got our first set. And we've been running them ever since. And it used to be they were the one tire that Hoosier said, we're just going to make these. They're going to stay consistent. We don't make enough money on them to make money on them. They're going to be a good tire. We're just going to let them be. And it was awesome because we had tires that you could run that were a year old. I found with the way I drove, and I mean, glowing brake rotors hammered in. I mean, I would stay in the gas till I thought I seen Jesus and then go a car length and use the brakes, you know, like that's how my style. I could go, I would find on night 7 or 8 on the right front, the first 10 laps, 15 laps were still just as fast, but the last 5 to 10 weren't. That's how they would fall off. Now we literally have guys and gals running one night and they're chunking the shit out of a right front and the price of tires in back then was $80 and they're $150 now. And I know the price of everything goes up and that's not the comparison, but they were $100 last year. They're $148 this year. And they're, pardon my French, they're shit. They were the tire that Hoosier made that were good. And now they're not. But they're kind of sticky. They're about Falcon Azenia. They're about the 615Ks. They're about that sticky. My personal experience was that they just tended to not, like you could overheat them better than you could a Falcon. But Josh Cross is in, says, congratulations, bro, on the win. And then my wife commenting, hi, nah, which is what my son calls me because he can't pronounce his D's quite right. So hi, buddy, if you're watching. And then Todd Minshew wants to know, did the West Coast Sport Compacts give you any competition?
They annihilated me. Like, honestly, like when we raced with them 2 or 3 years ago, like if I finished the race, like honestly, that was a win in my book without going a lap down. Like that's how much faster the Northwest Mini Stocks are than what we were. But now, in retrospect, like I think we could hold our own against them. So.
And Dan Irvine did want to. What's up, Dan? Man, it's been forever since I've seen you. Dan, and I was going to bring this up and I forgot to mention it there, but yeah, Hoosier was sold to Continental Tire a couple years ago, and going from a family-owned business to a major conglomerate owning them and Hoosier being this much of their business, it's all about money now instead of what it should be. So yes, not sure. I don't want to go down that road. That's going to wind me up, but we used to have really good tires and now we don't. So yeah, but so halfway through, we don't make any adjustments. We keep the right front on. We just tighten lug nuts, add fuel. One thing that you mentioned was that you wanted to stay consistent. I forgot to buy into Madera's so that I could actually watch. So I was out at my buddy Mike's and I was watching through Race Monitor. And have you actually seen your lap times from the race?
No.
Okay. So you should try to find a way to look this up. I don't know if Race Monitor does it, but I watched you run 16.5 after 16.5 after 16.5 after 16.5. The second half of that race, I could tell when you were lapping somebody because it would go from 16.5 to 16.6 to like 17.0, and then it would drop right back down to a 16.5. And it was like clockwork, man. I all the way here in Michigan, just watching a lap timer, I was impressed because it was a level of consistency over such a long amount of time. It blew my mind because you ended up with a 16.3 as your fast lap, 3 something. But the second half of that race, Freddie set fast time with a 15 low or mid 15.1. 16.1. No, he was not 1.2 seconds faster. He was only 0.2 seconds faster. Okay. He went a 1 in the feature. He went a 1 in the second half because Freddie usually same philosophy, ride out the first 50, race the second. Like lap 52 or 53 was his 16.1. He went at you. Like he was trying. And I'm watching Race Monitor, and there's a gap of 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and it was that way for a few laps. And then the gap went to 0.4, 0.5, 0.8, 0.9, 1.1, 1.2, because you were running 16.5, 16.5, 16.5. And Freddie could pull a 4 or a 5, but he would back that up with a 7 or an 8. And there was just enough inconsistency in his laps. Mind you, again, guys and gals, I was watching a lap timer on my phone. I'm not saying Freddie was doing bad. I don't know what was happening. But you cranked off some of the most consistent laps that I've seen. And a 16.5 while qualifying 3.5 is also impressive because a lot of guys can qualify quickly, but their consistent laps are half a second slower. They can't maintain a pace that well. So you really should try to find your lap times if you can, all of them, because I think it's going to be kind of neat to actually see how many 16.5s you ran, man. It was impressive to watch on Race Monitor. So that was a strategy that paid off, was that being consistent. So
thanks.
Yeah, it was honestly impressive. Like it was to the point where I'm like, man, I hope he pulls this thing off because just the performance was incredible to watch on that. The other thing that I thought was neat was that you lapped all the way up to, with like 3 to go, there was only 4 cars on the lead lap. And the gap was pretty good because the second 50, you guys went green. It was all 50 laps. So, which is also impressive, by the way, knowing how many cars are out there, but especially when you realize that, I mean, you were lapping a car after a certain amount of laps. You were lapping a car almost every 2 laps. Like it was consistent. You were catching cars. It wasn't like you had free sailing. But it got to a point where Freddie was 8 seconds or so behind you. And then with like 3 to go, he dropped out. Again, don't know what happened. I just see him drop.
Yeah, ECU overheated. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. The cool part was seeing that third at the time behind Freddie was like 14 like 11 seconds back. And then fourth place was like 14 seconds back. And then the white flag lap comes out. And on Race Monitor, I watch your gap go from, because obviously they both bumped up second and third. And I watch it go from about 12 and 14 seconds to about 5 seconds. And I'm going to be honest with you. I thought that something was wrong with the scoring because your lap time dropped like mid-20s. It was crazy how low it was. I thought something was up in the timing. You crossed the start-finish line. It's the checkered. And everybody else had to run that lap. And when you came across again, it was going to be official. That's what went through my head. That's not what happened, though, was it?
No,
what was the drama on the last lap here that you accurately called out in your interview?
So with lap 98, we came out of turn 4. I go into 1. The car doesn't, it turns, but it doesn't turn, and it's like shaking violently, like coming out of 2. I'm like, dude, I'm like, here we go. I'm like, the wheel's gonna fall off. We're gonna freaking the hub, something's gonna break. Like, dude, I don't know. I'm just like, well, we're already here. Let's full send. Let's see what happens. So go into 3, same thing. The car shakes violently, barely turns, like barely gets through the corner, still gets through the corner. Come across the start finish, get the white flag. I'm like, dude, we got 1 lap to go. I'm like, please let it make it. Go into 1, full send it into 1 like we've been all night. Went to pick up throttle again, and all of a sudden it's just like boom. And I'm like, well, we have no power. So I said, screw it, popped it in neutral, and I coasted. So I coasted from 2 all the way through 3, all the way through 4, and coasted past the start finish line to get the checker flag. So on the last lap, they said a motor on the show, but I broke an axle. It looked like a motor with how much smoke it was, but yeah.
There was a lot of smoke that came out from under the. It was understandable. I'm sure you've obviously seen it. It's understandable why they went, oh, he blew up.
Yeah.
So, and you're not joking. You were at the exit of 2. It wasn't this wasn't I was coming out of 2 and you're halfway down. It was the exit of 2 and smoke comes out.
Yep.
And I'm gonna try to play this. I can't get it to open its own tab kind of deal. So this might look a little funny. This was either Instagram stories or Facebook reels or whatever here. This is Justin Carson was filming this and tagging. I'm assuming Instagram. I'm thinking that this the V racing thing is your handle. Okay. So he's tagging Drew. But we get the interview. We get the halftime interview first, and then you guys get to watch the last couple laps here. All right. So we are going to try to make this work here. Oh, why is this not? Okay, so we're going to do this in just a second. I don't know exactly what's happening here. Come on. I am so well prepared for my first guest in like 2 or 3 months. So I tell you what, so Brian has a good comment. Drew, did you put the cone on the track on the last lap?
No, that was actually when I was coasting through 3. I looked under me to see if anyone was under me, and I didn't see the 39 car. And I straight up drove him off the track. Like, he came up afterwards and he's like, dude, he's like, I saw you weren't going very fast, and I saw where you were, so I straight up took out the cones. He took out every single cone through 3 and 4. He's like, I wasn't about to hit you because I knew where you were. So yeah, that was totally my bad.
The 39, was that Gary?
He has like the Army font 39. He has a K series in it.
Honda hatch, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's Gary Clintobi. I think so. So Gary's an OG of watching the show. So
thanks, Gary, for not hitting me. So
yeah, hey, thanks for letting Drew win that one, Gary.
Yes.
Todd also has a good question. Do you guys run a locked transmission or a limited slip on the blacktop there?
So this is all like personal preference, to be completely honest. Like, it depends on the track that we're racing, but most of the time we run like an LSD, just a factory style LSD.
Okay. Is that what you had in the car there at Madera?
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned you have the 490-ish final drive there. Were you running second or third gear by chance?
Third. Yeah, we run third gear in every track. Yeah.
Okay. I will have to just because my ADD won't allow me to know. Like, I got to find out what this ratio is real quick. I hate that I have to do this, but I have to do this or my brain is going to go insane. Ratio. And this is what I find funny. People ask me all the time about gears and stuff like that, and I usually tell them so the gear I run 80% of the tracks is 355 final drive. It's the HD, so it's a different second gear. Well, it's a 691 overall final drive. So that's the gear ratio in second gear with that final drive. And I'll tell that to people, and the amount of guys when they ask gear ratio questions go, huh? So is that second gear, third gear? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, I've got the 490 or the 410 or the 444 and or I have the F23 trans or this one. And I'm like, man, it'd be so much easier if you all would just use overall final drive to start, and then you would add in the
Right.
So I get it. If you're a Honda guy, you know what the ratios are. So okay. Honda tranny gear ratios. Let's see here. B series. Integra GSR. So the 92 to 93 Integra GSR, I assuming is ish.
94 to 2000.
94 to 2000. Okay. This chart does. Okay, 91. Okay, there we go. Oh, it does change it. So it goes from a 148. All right, so 1 point. I got to grab my calculator here because I don't do math like this in this thing. All right, so we're just going to use the 490 because that was ish what you said, I believe. Multiplied by the 1.360, 666, 6664. How many RPM were you turning with that short a tire with that ratio by chance?
Like 85 ish.
Okay. Was your rollout roughly 72, 74 inches on those tires? Our 23-inch 790s are roughly 74, give or take an inch or two.
Yeah, so 74. So 74 and
okay.
72 and a half was the inner.
Okay. Yeah. This is one I wasn't worried about asking until I could get out there, but since I have an expert on it, I figured, trying to get ready. I don't have that many options. My chart has 2 final drives and 2 second gears, and that's about it. So I go from a 691 to a 536 with nothing in between, or I can go 691, 753, 768, or an 813. So between 7 and 8, I have a bunch of ratios, but nothing in between. So that gets me closer, a 660 twist and 84 with a short tire. So I could probably do the 768 with a tall tire because I'm going to want to be mid 8s or higher on RPM as well. So cool. All right. Now we got that.
There you go.
I think I figured out how to. I also was just going to bring like every transmission I have. And if I needed more RPM or less RPM, we were going to swap it because it's a 2-day show. So there was that. Okay. Apparently there was sirens in Charlotte. My dad's saying the storm was so bad. I can't hear anything. Granted, I do have 2 earbuds in, so maybe it is storming outside and I can't hear it. Okay. So share screen. For the love of heavens, people, please don't send me a weird message on Facebook right now. Okay, so we're going to share this, and then we're going to make this full screen. We're going to make sure the volume's here. So this is your halftime interview.
Yep.
I hope that's not a predicament, but hopefully we do good tonight. So, well, impressive drive so far in the lead for Drew Crenshaw in car number 0. Exposed so far, we're green.
Come on, Drew.
Into turn number 3 is going to be the 0 of Crenshaw.
2 laps.
A white flag from Fearless Frank.
Oh my gosh.
White flag is out. Final trip around the Madera Speedway for the 0 of Drew Crenshaw.
Oh my.
Oh,
No.
Crenshaw goes through. And did I not predict this at the 98?
No.
Bowman as he comes by the front straightaway. Well, motor up in that car as he heads down into turn number 1.
Yeah, Drew.
Pick up the checkered flag after blowing the motor up coming out of turn number 1 and 2. So I was like, let's see what happens. Got a couple of trophies here, the big one from Madera, and then also this perpetual trophy. You get to add your name to a great list of drivers there. Thomas Stanford, Terry Armstrong, Brian Bowman. Bunch of rear-wheel drive guys. You bring this front-wheel drive car onto that trophy. What does that mean? And Beach World, front wheel drive, I love it. Everyone always dogs on it, but man, tonight it was good and it was really good. So all cars are pretty equal here. It's awesome how close the field is. So front wheel drive, rear wheel drive. Next year, bring your car out and have a good time with us, guys. It's awesome to have this guy in Victory Lane, the zero car, Drew Crenshaw.
So the beginning of that interview was, I hope nothing happens on the last lap. And that was a pretty big puff of smoke coming out of turn 2. So I watched his story because, again, by the time I watched his story, I had already knew that you won. So I see why the gap changed the way that it did. So that has to be one of the most exciting finishes I think I've seen at a race for a while. 100 laps to come down to coasting over half a lap for the win on that one. So I can only imagine when you're talking about the vibration with 2 to go, I can only imagine that in my head was, man, if that happened to me, my thought would have been, we're wrecking her or we're winning her or something. Just turn, I hope. And because I wouldn't have stopped. I would not have pulled in. I'd have done the same thing. We're going to coast around and see what we can do. So, yeah. Todd says Madera is only an hour and a half away from his hometown. So, nice.
Jealous. Come next year and watch. It's an awesome show.
You say that. I'm gonna pull something up here. This is why we flew out last year, and this is why. Well, to be fair, the car is, not ready. But this is the drive that I have. We're pulling up Google Maps here. I will say this about Madera. First off, it is in the middle of Madera. I did not realize that. If you guys have never seen Madera Speedway, it's like there's a Panda Express across the parking lot. It's yeah, it's real close.
There's the Lowe's. There's
it shares a parking lot with Lowe's and Walmart and Taco Bell and all that. Yeah. Once we pull the directions up here, I'll put this over and then I'll show you guys Madera. David wants to know, what's it pay to win? So how much did you walk away with? Because just the money to win is not necessarily the story here, because it was $2,000 to win. Somebody stepped up and sponsored another $1,000 to win, so $3,000 cash. But what other goodies did you get? Because Mr. Robert Copley steps up for this race and hands out a lot of really neat stuff. So what all did we get for winning this race?
So the cool thing was, it was $2,000 from Olga, $1,000 from Madera Speedway, which was awesome. So it was $3,000 to win. So if you can see the check in the background, $3,000 to win. I got actually a trophy from Madera also, and then my name gets put on the traveling trophy for winning the halfway point. I think it was $50 or something like that. So I actually didn't get to. I haven't got that yet. Bob still has it. So Pyrotech, I got a free Pyrotech helmet, which is pretty cool. So that was part of the winnings also. So that's was awesome. So a $350 helmet was part of the winnings. So brand new white helmet. So awesome.
Nice.
So and then there was a whole bunch of sponsors, like cash total prizing. Just with cash, we were like $3,200 just cash.
Okay.
So yeah.
So I haven't seen anybody say anything yet. Did you happen to get some goodies from the front wheel drive shop out there and like the goodie bag stuff too? Did you get to choose something from that?
We did. I got
a
helmet hook, and we were only supposed to take one thing, and you know me, so I got a helmet hook, and I broke my my receiver that you gave us last year. So I took 2 things instead of just one. So
I sent enough that guys could have. I didn't send enough receiver mounts so everybody could have one. I didn't send enough of one thing everybody could have one, but there was enough of everything that people could have one or a couple. And I didn't tell Marinda what to do with the leftovers, so yeah, we'll let it slide this time. Especially since you won, we'll let it slide. What colors did you pick?
I did blue for both of them, I think.
Okay.
So
It was an eclectic assortment of colors that I sent out because I kind of looked and seen what I had in stock, and I printed off a couple base ones and was like, well, if they complain about the free colors they're getting, then they can buy the color they want, you know.
there you go.
And Brian got some hood pin plates, awesome, and the rivets to go with them. Because if you head over to the front wheel drive shop, which if you look at Drew's forehead, it's there. We got our helmet hooks, we got our bump stops back in stock. We changed up the setting a little bit. Oh, I can hear the rain now. Oh yeah, it's raining good. We got hood pin plates. You get 5 hood pin plates with rivets. Order helmet hook, you get the hose clamp that goes with it. We don't make you buy it on your own, and they're good, thin, small stainless steel ones. They're expensive. The price on those is tripled, by the way, ordering the hose clamps. And then receiver mounts, which is our bread and butter on them. So head over there, head to the front wheel drive shop, pick something up. We got a bunch of stuff. The wife is shipping things right now, and she loves doing it. So go order something. The wife will ship it out to you. So, and we are an authorized, David. Yes, I got you, David. I'll get a hold of you tomorrow. We are an authorized receiver dealer. So if you go over to the page, you can get yourself a receiver, speakers, the new Element, lightsevers. I realized are not on the website, and they will be. How'd you like that last year? Did you like the lightsever that we got to run that I brought out there to show off?
They were okay. Like they were good-ish. The only thing that was really hard is like yellow was really close to all the other colors. Like it wasn't like too different.
Yeah.
So that was the only thing that was hard, but it was really nice because we didn't have race control last year. So It was amazing to have something in the car when it did go yellow, because sometimes, because there's only one flagman at Madera. There's not two. Like most of the racetracks, there's 2 flagmen. If there's a caution, like there's, at least at Meridian there is. There's one coming out of 3 and one at the start finish.
We have lights. We have like the lights around the track.
Yeah.
I've never raced anywhere with 2 flagmen.
Well, maybe we're just special in Idaho. So
it's West Coast, Midwest, man. I'm telling you, you guys do some stuff a little different out there. It's not bad. It's just a little different. But like our tracks will have like strobe lights or like the flashing rotator lights and stuff around the track.
We do.
You know,
but
so yeah.
The race pack was faster than that though. So like the cautions would come on and that would be bright enough to be able to actually see.
I was running the buttons. That was why. Did you happen to notice last year the phantom yellow light that happened before the caution came out by chance?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened was I was watching the guy who spun 270 degrees and was facing the wrong way, like sideways across the track. And I was like, oh, this is a caution. So I hit the caution light, and the flagman staring down at turn 1 and 2. And I don't even remember who it was. It was facing the wrong way at the entrance to 3. And I'm like, oh, they haven't thrown caution. So I cleared the light. Luckily, they did throw the caution. And I had like 5 guys that not everybody knew I was running it last year. And so a few guys were like, yeah, I like that. But man, somebody turned the yellow light on at the wrong time. And I was like, that was me. So yeah, it was quite interesting to do that. That was the first time I'd ever watched a race from an official capacity in a tower, because I'm usually either on track or in the grandstand. So I had a lot of firsts at Madera. That was pretty cool. So first time I ever took a rental car on the racetrack. So yeah. And it was Gary. So Gary posted, good job, Drew. And I put the cone on the track trying to not hit Drew. Thank you for that, Gary. Drew owes you a drink of your choice next year for allowing him that win and taking the paint off your car with the cones for it. So
for sure. I agree.
Yeah. So my dad says you should bring your hot rod this way and race some Midwest races when you can. Let's talk about that for a second. You have raced this last year in Indiana. 2.5 hours away from where I'm sitting is Anderson, Indiana. Anderson Speedway. My dad was just there a couple weekends ago, ran a VCTS race. I got my golden ticket to Bristol at Anderson Speedway. You raced Anderson Speedway this year, but it wasn't in a front wheel drive. It maybe is as exciting as a front wheel drive, but why did you come all the way from where you're at to Anderson, Indiana? What were you trying to do at Anderson this year?
So we were trying to qualify for the little 500. It's the Saturday before the big Indy 500. Basically, it's sprint cars. It's the biggest sprint car show, honestly, I think in the world. Like, to make that show, to even be part of it,
Fair
is
assessment.
is a huge accomplishment. So I also race sprint cars and wing sprint cars and midgets. Front wheel drive mini stocks are my passion, but I definitely that's why we traveled all the way out there, was to try to qualify for the little 500. So
how close did you get to making the show?
It was bad. So we drove all the way out there. We thought everything was all good. About every 2 laps, my car would lose 2 gallons of water onto the right rear tire. So we had a blown head gasket.
That seems detrimental. That seems detrimental to racing a sprint car. Water on the right rear. That seems detrimental.
It was horrible. So we still almost made the show. We were the second alternate, to be honest. So we were the second alternate to be in the show, which I thought was like, it stinks that I was the second alternate, but it was a huge accomplishment for the first time that I've ever gone out there to run it, to be the second alternate. And we were only 3/10 off making the show, with me not being able to put down a good lap. So not trying to make excuses, but like, with the car, when it did run good for 1 lap, we were hunting down the people that made the show. So the car was fast.
Now there's something, if you guys don't know about the little 500, first off, you should look it up because it's insanity. If you guys have ever seen green flag pit stops happen with a car without a starter, that's the little 500. They go 500 laps on a quarter mile in a wingless sprint car. Yep. And the thing with qualifying, you say you're 3/10 off, which if you look at the field of sprint cars, typically 3/10 is a pretty big gap in a sprint car. But the neat thing that Anderson does for the little 500 is that they follow the Indianapolis 500 qualifying. They take your total time of 4 laps. So with a total time of 3/10 away, that's what, 0.08 a lap away from making the little 500. Yep. And for comparison's sake, Kenny Schrader, who has raced sprint cars before, his first attempt at the little 500, I think he was close to a second away from making the show. He wasn't really even on the list of alternates. So Kenny Schrader, longtime racer, good driver, was many places behind the effort that you guys were able to put in with a subpar car. So I can understand the frustration of like, oh man, like we didn't make it. But the list of people who have not ran that race and never won that race for being some of the baddest dudes to ever drive sprint cars is insane. So just props for being that close to making it. Yeah. What did we think of Anderson? What did we think of the racetrack?
Anderson, honestly, the racetrack is very bumpy compared to what we're used to. Going into the 3, if you had the wrong line, it was bad. Like, it went bad really quickly. The banking there, like, we honestly, like, even though we didn't make the show, we set up on the wall and watched people take all their stuff down in the center. So that's super fun because you see people like do the Jesus cross and hold their pit carts as they're going down the hill trying to get down in the pits. It's that steep. So it's insanely steep. The G's going around the corners, like the racetrack itself, the facility is super nice. Like everyone there is amazing. The track is good. It's kind of expected, especially being out where you guys are with the winters that you guys have, that it's going to be bumpy. Like it's expected.
We had this thing called frost that, that was, I was actually talking to Kenny Shepard about Madera and how glass smooth it was. And he's like, yeah, we just repaved it, or we just we sealed it or whatever. And this and that. And I was like, man, it's so smooth. And with what we got, and Kenny he's driven here in Michigan, Kenny Shepard has raced late models and that. And he's like, yeah, he goes, it doesn't freeze here. The ground doesn't move. And I was like, that is a good point. Because in Michigan, we have a smooth track now, Wasso, because they just repaved it, but otherwise, so my local track, Springport Motor Speedway, which is my home tracks, first place I ever did, is a bigger version of Anderson. Anderson being a quarter mile, Springport being a actual true big 3/8. Anderson has 17 degrees banking, Springport has 17 or 18, so 1 degree more. So that Anderson, I like Anderson. My dad likes Anderson because it's a tighter little bull ring of what we're used to. So Anderson's a lot of fun. And it's next year, if you bring the sprint car, maybe slide the Honda in there and let me know, and we'll get you some races in. I'm sure we can make sure you make
Yeah,
some.
we're going to make it this next year. So the motor got fixed in my car. Mike's car also, we'll have a new motor in that. So we'll be out there. We're going to make the little 500 this next year. That is definitely one of the goals. So,
well, I'll tell you what, we'll figure out when things is. You let me know if you guys need a crew guy. I will come help for the little 500 just so that I can come hang out, because I've never actually seen the little 500 in person. It is 33 sprint cars. They start 3 wide, 11 rows, and it is 500 laps of sprint car racing with live track green flag pit stops on cars with no starters. So you could be in a full-blown wingless sprint car and have to avoid a push truck just because they're trying to get somebody started. So
yep.
It's insanity, and let me know next year if you need a hand. I'll come help. So, yeah, my dad says you should come to Winchester. If you want to talk about bumpy and terrifying, that's Winchester Speedway for you. Winchester is the highest banked track in the continuous United States, and it is in the middle of a cornfield. And the fast line is around the wall. And I don't mean the top groove. I mean against the wall. The late models will try to touch the right rear on the wall coming out of 4. That's where the fast line is. And Bristol is less scary than Winchester. And I think you go faster. I think you go more mile an hour at Bristol, but Winchester is it's like Anderson, only big. So when you're in a Dodge Neon, it's kind of terrifying. So how did you get hooked up driving front wheel drives? How do we go from driving front wheel drives to driving a sprint car for somebody? How walk me through the process, because that's not a normal pipeline. People don't go, well, I drove a Honda Civic, I'm gonna drive a sprint car. Like, how did we get there?
So kind of the cool thing so we moved to Idaho to open up a business up here in Idaho from Salt Lake, from Utah. The guy that was doing the electrical work in the store, Mike Anderson, 68 Anderson Racing, was like, hey, dude, are you into cars? I see that you have a modified car. I was like, yeah, man, I love cars. I've drifted, I've rock crawled, I've road raced, street raced, drag race, literally anything that involves motorsports I'd done. And he goes, hey, dude, he's like, have you ever done circle track racing? And I'm like, dude, circle track racing? I'm turning left. Seriously, bro?
Okay.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what I did. He goes, dude, don't knock it until you try it. So I was like, okay, cool. He's like, well, this Saturday is our first open practice of the year. I have a Hornet car, so it was a stock Ford Escort. He's like, come drive it. Come see what you think. Honestly, there's no consequences. If you total the car, we're all good. Just come drive it and let's see how you do. So I go out first practice, and I set quick time for the day. I ran a 16.8 first time in the car. So not knowing what I'm doing, I just went out there, felt the car, kind of did it. So he's like, dude, he's like, you're fast. So good job. He's like, come help me and we'll call it good. So that hooked me. So I went and bought a 4-door Honda Civic. Literally the next day we found one, we picked it up. We got it caged, and we ended up painting it and for the race that year racing. So I ended up winning 4 or 5 main events that year. The For Sure Racing Hornets. At the end of the season, Mike came up to me and was like, hey man, he's like, you took really, really good care of that Hornet. Do you want to drive a crate sprint car for me? So it's called a Pepsi car. So it just has a crate 602 motor in it. He's like, do you want to drive a Pepsi or sprint car for me next year? I go, well, sure. Why not? So literally I go from racing Hornets to getting put into a crate sprint car. So pretty much that's kind of where it went. I raced sprint cars for like 2 years, 2 or 3 years. We won. So this is a funny story. We'll go back a little bit. This race, the Olga Dream 100, is the first mini stock race I have ever won that was actually like a real race, if that makes sense. So like the other races that we had was like 4 or 5 cars. So it really wasn't like a big field.
It was a real race, but it wasn't like there was a B main full of cars that you beat. It was 5. Okay.
Yeah. So
listen. We have to clarify that because there are some people who race against 5 or 6 cars. It's good racing. We're not saying it's fake what you do. It just listen. I've won an A main when 125 cars have qualified. It is a little bit different. So not taken away from the 5 or 6, but
So going back to it, so basically he threw me in a sprint car. We raced it for like 2 or 3 years. I think I won like 9 sprint car races in the 2 or 3 years that we ran it. I ended up.
Now, was that at one track or did you travel around with that?
We traveled. So we went to like to Magic Valley Speedway, so Twin Falls. We traveled up to Wenatchee with it, which is actually a pretty big track. It's super fun. So we traveled in Salt Lake. We raced in Salt Lake City also. So we traveled to like 4 or 5 different tracks here locally within like 6 or 7 hours of us.
Yeah.
So kind of stopped racing sprint cars. I was like, dude, I'm good. Like I work way too much. I don't really have time for this because sprint cars take a lot more effort than mini stock. Right?
Yeah.
So the funny thing is we were at the Pink Lady Classic 3 years ago. At Madera Speedway, so a huge wing sprint car race, and it was the Northwest Mini Stocks were doing the show at the same time. So it was a Friday, Saturday race. Northwest Mini Stocks were there. Justin actually blew up his motor on Thursday night. So in my car, we ripped the motor out of my car, put in Justin's car, and Mike saw that I was there and I wasn't racing. He goes, "Hey, dude, I got my sprint car here. Do you want to drive my sprint car and I'll just run the wing car?" So I ended up jumping back into the Pepsi car, the non-wing car, and we actually ended up winning that night in the Pepsi car, not driving in a while. And I think Justin did pretty good too with my motor. So that's kind of how it got back into it. So this year is actually the first year I've actually ever ran wing sprint cars. So we haven't had the best luck yet, but we are getting faster. So that's all that matters with that. So
I got to ask, with a wing sprint car there, I'm assuming all pavement races with a wing sprinter. Okay. Yeah. Because I'm going to guess here again, wing sprinter is probably like a 410 versus like the crate. So it's like open motor class. Okay. How much faster and like exhilarating, terrifying, scary, whatever you want to say, how much different is that compared to like the crate non-wing?
So a wing sprint car is, I would say like scary. Like it's not like it's fast. Like we're going like 100 miles in a quarter-mile track. We're going 100 miles into the quarter, 100 miles per hour into the quarter. But the crate car is like you have to drive. Like it's not. There is no crutch. If you mess up in a crate car, like you're done. With a wing car, if you miss the corner, dude, you let out for a second, flat foot it, and the car will turn and make the corner. With the crate car, if you mess up, it goes bad really, really quick. So, but
VCTS racing has that similarity because with the 1-inch intake restrictor, if you're at a momentum track, if you scrub a corner, you can't just out horsepower the guy next to you. You know, you've got to build that run back up again. So our local quarter mile Spartan Speedway had a non-wing division for a few years. And I always thought these guys were on the gas like the whole time. It's just they're on the gas. And they're running, I think they were running 12-second laps. Now, mind you, I'm the fastest front wheel drive to ever go around that track at a 1482. And they're going like low 12s, right? Non-wing. And I watched an in-car video from the one guy next to me and that pitted next to me, and he's lifting at the flag stand. And I'm like, dude, they're on the gas for a third of the straightaway and they're going 12s. Like, so now mind you, this was an open class. So these guys had, a little more power than a crate car, but Doug Deach, the guy next to me, actually one night comes in and he's just mad because Doug was quick. He could run top 3. He comes in, the car's not doing what he wants. He's like 6th quick or something. And he's pitted next to me. Good guy. We're friendly. And I go, listen, my car right there just set the track record. It is the fastest car on the property in my class. If you can point that thing to the front, you can win in it. I will trade you right now and you can go out, you can win. And he looks at me and he looks at my car and he looks at his car and he goes, you know what? I'm good. And his mood changed like that. because I told him, I was like, dude, I will idle that thing around and be happy. And his thought was, I'm not driving a Dodge Neon, so life's pretty good. I got a sprint car. It's not a Dodge Neon. And he actually told me later that season that me offering that, like painting it that way, like, this is the baddest son of a bitch here for these. Do you want to drive it? And he's just like, I'm not. No, that would piss me off more. So like it changed his mentality that night. I think he went out and like won the heat and he did well in the feature, but just watching his face of like, I have a sprint car. Why would I want that trash? So that's why, to me, just the Honda Civic wing sprint car, he's done you right, man. Like I like this guy. I'm gonna have to meet him, mainly to ask if he's got an extra seat in the sprint car when he comes to Indiana. But I'm just saying, like. So how many different tracks have you raced at then? If we're traveling with the sprint cars, we've traveled to Indiana, we've traveled to California. How many stock car tracks have we raced on?
Probably say 10. So around 10.
Okay. So. Which one so far has been your favorite?
I still like Meridian Speedway, honestly. The concrete jungle, like it's a driver's track. Like that's what I like. It's not a horsepower track. It's not like you have to drive to win. It's not you're going to win because you have the deepest pockets. It does help, but like Meridian Speedway is a very good equalizer across the board.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons like we can go from track to track to track to track and do very well at every track. Not very well. We do good at every track that we go.
Yeah.
Because we have had that little bullring mentality that we have. So, but
funny enough, I credit a lot of my success and my ability to adapt to tracks to my local bullring, Spartan Speedway, Corgan Oil. I raced Springport, went to Spartan. They're really close, but Spartan, we'd have a field of 18 cars that the top 10 would qualify within 4/10 of each other in the front wheel drives. And we'd have full invert. So I'd have to start at the tail, and we've got 20 laps to get to the front. And everybody wants to get to the front. And I mean, we're 5 wide in these cars on a track that modifieds can go 2 wide in. But it taught me to drive. Like, that was the thing, is you drive traffic. You got to be aggressive when you need to be, and you got to know when not to be, and the ability to adapt. And for a long time, we would have invites where, the rules would relax a little bit. Other cars could come in, the traveling series and stuff like that. And Spartan Speedway drivers won. Like, they could take on all comers because they just knowing how to drive that track. And I've kind of noticed that people who start on bull rings and drivers tracks like that, M40 here in Michigan's a good example. Galesburg, good Lord. If you're good at Galesburg, you'd be good about anywhere because you're probably insane. But like some of those tracks, guys that can race there, they can go anywhere and do pretty well. But some of the tracks where it's horsepower stuff, not saying they can't get it, but it's usually like third practice and not first practice where they get it, because there are tracks that are a lot easier when you can just point and click and go. I've been the guy who has been out horsepowered, and I have out horsepowered some guys, and I definitely like being the guy who can out horsepower people. It's a lot more fun that way. Yeah, Brian says, don't bring that 5 wide to Madera. You will piss people off. Hey, I'm bringing mine. If people want to go race beside me, that's on them. So, and Dan says Lucas Oil Speedway is his favorite. I've only ran Lucas Oil one time, and actually Dan gave me a mirror and a spring to run Lucas Oil. It was a lot of fun. My favorite's Bristol, because it makes everything else seem lame. If you ever get on a really big track, a half mile that has serious speed, or Lucas Oil's 5/8, Winchester, Bristol, those kind of tracks, they change the way you feel about some of your local tracks when you're 50 miles an hour less at them. So yeah. What's one racetrack that you not necessarily hate going to, but maybe dread because it's just not your track? It just, stuff doesn't seem to go right or something. Do you have a track like that?
The only one that comes to mind is Hermiston. It's a giant cheese grater. It destroys tires. You have to drive off track to get a good line a lot of the time. There's a jump going into one. It's a hard track to drive, and I just haven't had very good luck there. So that's
Gotcha.
one of the tracks I don't really go
I get it. Mine's Galesburg. I've been fast. Every time I win, I've been top 2, 3, 4 qualifying. I've been fighting for the lead, and I totaled out a car there. I've only had one finish, and that night I wrecked a buddy of mine. Just made a mistake, stepped on it, tapped him, took him out. I have zero luck at that racetrack. And it's always something silly. It's not one person's out to get me. It's not that the track is bad. I can't do well there. So, why did we travel to the first Olga's race? I mean, it's 10, 11, 12 hours away. Why are we towing that far away? What made Madera and Olga's a go-to destination for you to make that trip?
So Bob came up and kind of talked to us while we're at mini. I don't race. The thing that people have to get to is I don't race mini stocks every weekend. I race mini stocks 3 times a year, if that. It's not like my go-to thing. I just love mini stocks. That's my passion. Bob came up to me and kind of told us what was going on. We were at the racetrack. He's like, "Hey, dude, we're trying to throw this race together. I'm really impressed with your driving. I would just love you to come and just come. If you can get any of your mini stock friends to come with us, let's do it. Let's make it happen." Honestly, I'm always down to travel. We're always down to try new things. Why not? That's pretty much why we went. So it was a good race. I don't really remember that much of it, to be honest. I don't think I might have finished 2 laps down or something like that. All I remember is the 19 car, this car right here, this car, super, super fast. He was out there running the same times as late models. And that's where the rules kind of changed from the roller rocker combination to kind of get rid of that to make it more even filled. But my goal of that race was honestly just to not go a lap down. I think because we went green, white, checker, I think there was 1 caution the whole race. So to only go one or 2 laps down was a huge win in my book. So that's why we started going, was just because honestly, Bob just asked us, why not? So it was in the funds and it was able to do it. So we went.
Obviously, we loved it enough. We've gone back every year because the one you talk about, the first one, was the first Olga's Dream. I mean, it wasn't, it didn't happen before. And the second year was, the old CV exposure stuff. So that made things quite interesting because there was no fans. Bob was telling me the story of this. Madera managed to make this work. Everybody was masked up and distanced and all this and that and limited. And there was literally no crowd. They weren't allowed to have a crowd. So the first couple years was everybody just made the A main because there was the car count for a race. So obviously we had fun enough the first time. Was the second year and the third year with the COVID restrictions and that, was the spirit still there? Was it still just as fun as event that you went to that it's still, man, I still got to go back to this? How was it? I've never raced with literally nobody watching. So how was that? Brian answered it, but Kenny, we're talking about Madera Speedway out in California. Drew won the Olgas Dream 100. So talk to us about literally no fans watching you do this.
So with no one there, it wasn't, I don't know. It wasn't really weird. It was just like a practice day because you don't really notice the fans anyhow. Like when you're racing,
Yeah.
Everyone that races knows that like when you put that helmet on, you strap it on, you put the seatbelts on, you cinched out. Like nothing else matters but the car in front of you and where you're going to go. So without the fans there, it wasn't strange or weird. It just there wasn't that aura of energy that you usually get from the crowd, like before the race starts. But I honestly, that the second year, I ended up working on cars the entire time, so I didn't even get to go practice my car before qualifying because one car the timing jumped, the other car it wouldn't start. So my car, I just sat there. So I actually like fired my car, went out, qualified, came in, and started working on the cars again. So that year I finished fourth. So the second year I finished fourth in my car. But as far as like the COVID stuff, like the only weird thing was like not being able to like hang out in your buddy's trailer, like hanging out with Justin and Molly, like we weren't supposed to, but like it still happened. But and they masked. They literally like. Make sure you got your mask on. Make sure you got your mask on. If you go to the bathroom, make sure you put your mask on. Like, but besides that, like the aura of the racetrack was still good. Like everyone still helped everyone. Like that's like I don't understand that people understand how cool this race is. Like literally, I won the heat race this year. I go out for the quick class or whatever they called it. I don't know what they called it, but the quick class. My car literally, we had to put a jump box on it to get started. I pulled it to the line. My car literally will not run. Like it has 0 voltage. Like will not run. Pull back into the pits. Run over to Josh Cross. Thanks, Josh, again. Ran over to Josh. Josh had an alternator. Like literally saved my butt. Didn't have to do anything. Literally said, take the alternator off my extra motor, put it on your car. Let's get you back out there. So it's like the camaraderie of the guys racing one another. Like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter if you have a Mustang or if you have a Neon or a Honda Civic. Everyone's there to help one another if they have the time to help you, which is like, it speaks so loudly of how good people are that come from all over the country and Canada and everywhere else to come to this race. So if you want to just see like amazing people that just want to see good racing, it's pretty cool to go to it. So
I got to admit, it was one where, funny enough, you said how Bob asked and you came out. That's how I made it out there. Bob basically messaged me and was like, hey, so I'm putting on this race and here's the story behind it. And Bob and I spent so many hours on the phone last year. This year, I didn't talk to Bob nearly as much. It was me. It wasn't Bob. This hasn't been a banner year for me working through some stuff. So that's why. But he literally was like, hey, come on out. You should come out. What's it going to take to get you out there? And we were trying to bring the car. I was legitimately trying to take my car last year. Turns out the car was garbage. So I'm glad I didn't drive that way. So by the way, I brought this up. I told you guys, oh crap, I have, we're going to go. By the way, the address that you guys are about to see is not actually my home address. Before you guys think you're going to do something goofy. Let me share this tab. This is the drive that I would have to make it out to Madera Speedway. For those of you wondering, click, there you go. There we go. 34 hours. That is 2,446 miles one way. So my van averages about 11 to 11 and a half mile to the gallon. So you can do the math on 5,000 miles of driving. That's why we didn't make it out there last year with the car. It was significantly cheaper to fly, get a hotel room, and rent a car than to drive out there. But Madera is actually, I give Madera a lot of credit for being, Madera changed the course of a lot of things for me because that's where I got together with Carl Fredrickson with Speedway Illustrated, tricked him into talking to me while I drove him back to his hotel. And while I was out there with Madera, the thing that got me was that friendship, the camaraderie. I've been to a lot of races, a lot of racetracks. I've been racing stock cars since '07. there's usually some camaraderie and stuff like that. But for a race where people are coming from 10, 11, 12 hours away, who never race against each other, who they don't cross paths in any way, except for going here, it was awesome to walk around. And the only thing I seen that wasn't just a super positive interaction was after the race, there was some confusion because some stuff wasn't explained clearly. It wasn't a huge, the people who were upset didn't cause a massive ruckus. Like, it's not like a stain on the event. I understood why they were upset. I understand the confusion, blah, blah, blah. Not my place to get into. That was it. Was this one thing the entire weekend. And I mean, I walked up and talked to guys that were working on their car the entire weekend. I feel bad. I met a lot of people. I don't remember names. The gentleman that had the truck, that had the Chevy truck, that truck just kept having issues. And I went down and was going to interview him. And he's like, this isn't a good time. We're working on the car. And I'm like, no problem, man. I got you. I understand that. They came and sought me out later because he's like, hey, man, it's a good time now. Let's talk. Awesome. You know, but it was such that atmosphere. It was such a friendly atmosphere of everybody talking to everybody hanging out. And the thing that got me was the guys that were there that were like, oh yeah, I'm not winning. Like, no, I just come to hang out. I don't get that at a lot of races. Like, Drew, you and I know there's some guys that when you go to the racetrack where you're like, I hope he gets a top 15. Like, he's a great guy. I hope he gets a top 15. You just know that he's not winning. But if you ask him, he's there for the trophy, right? There were guys at Madera at Olgas that were like, yeah, no, it's awesome. Bob's a great guy, and this is a sweet show, and I hope I can win the B main. Like, if they made the show, it was awesome. If you make the show, like, it's great. And it was something that I wasn't used to. And I've been talking about it for a year. I'm still talking about how awesome it was. So if you guys are able to make the trip out there for this event, first off, Madera is quite the interesting facility. It's an awesome track. I do need to zoom in on this. I need to take this away and show you guys Madera Speedway because it is something else. But it's even Madera. Kenny Shepard has an operation out there that is amazing. And it's a great track to go to. So if you guys are able to make it out there, you absolutely should. And Travis, thanks for still watching, Travis. Travis lives out in California. I wonder if when Fontana opens, it's going to be open to guys like you. Fontana, I think, is the NASCAR track they're changing to a smaller, like, half-mile layout, isn't it? Or is that auto? No, that's auto. Is Auto Club? I don't know what the tracks out there are. I think an East versus West race should be a thing soon on top of Madera. You know, Brian, the trick would be finding a halfway point and having an East Coast versus West Coast. But I would say, too, the rules could be interesting because Drew's racing at 2,000 pounds with you in it. I'm assuming with you in it, fully loaded with fuel with him in it. My car last year was 2375 with no lead, right? We've got guys out here that are 300 horsepower. They're not out there. The rules are different. The cars are built a little different. So I'd be really curious the middle ground because, again, I don't know how a 700 compares to like a 790 or stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see. But I'm down to try to help make it happen. So if any of you guys want to plan some stuff,
so we're
going to
try to talk to Bob actually about doing the prequel again and doing like a 3-day show. So do like Twin Falls. So if people want to come, so Twin Falls, which is just a little bit bigger than Meridian. So that'd be Friday. Saturday would be Meridian Speedway, and then Sunday would be Emmett, which is all within 2 hours from Boise. So literally there's 3 race tracks within 2 hours from Boise. So we're trying to figure out how to get Bob to do a prequel race again, but try to make a 3-day show also and make it a midget and a wing sprint car show too. So you'll have mini stocks, midgets, and wing sprint cars. all running at the same times, and even maybe super modifieds. So we're actually in the works of trying to talk to make that happen, how to figure out how to make that happen. But that is something that we put out in the air to see if we get it to stick to the wall. So, but there's an idea.
Yeah. I'll have to see what weekend that is. I mean, that Boise's still a couple minutes away from Michigan, but
See, the
probably
cool thing
closer
is,
than Madera.
the cool thing is you tow your car out here, you drop it off, you leave it here, we tow it out to Madera for you, and then you just fly back. Like, there you go, done. Or you can just leave it. So,
You know, I don't know. I don't know if I get it built the way I want to build it. I might have some stuff I don't want all you guys to be able to look all over, you know? So honestly, I'd have to see what weekends too, because I might want the thing in between there. Would be the thing. But because you say you race these things 3 times a year. Normally I'm not like that, but this year I haven't raced at all. So this year, yeah, I could leave it there. But normally I race anywhere from 10 to 30 times a year. So Travis says Auto Club licenses all the tracks. That's why there's multiple Auto Club speedways. They just didn't renew for Pomona, though. Pomona is in and out speedway until 2033.
nice.
Okay. I will have to look into that, Travis. Travis, by the way, Travis is watching on YouTube because we are live on YouTube and Facebook. Travis, if you guys want to watch some LS-based content, the GMLS there, that dude, he knows that stuff. Watching some of his videos where he goes junkyard hunting, and he's just rattling off like, this VIN number should have this, and this engine has this, and these injectors, and this rail, and this, and I'm like, I mean, I know neons, but I don't know what VIN number has stuff in it. Like, man. So if you guys want to watch some LS-based content, if you're into that at all, go check out Travis's stuff. So
That's actually what I have in my sprint cars in LS. So
nice.
Yep.
What like how big is it? Just curious.
a Cadillac CTS. So I Travis tell us. I have no idea.
I didn't know if it was built. Like, I didn't know if we're talking like Texas Speed 427 LS based, or like, hey, I pulled a 5.3 out of a truck and stuffed it in a sprint car.
So it is built. It made like 750 to the wheels on.
Okay.
So it makes power, but it's the cheap motor of our motors.
Listen, man, I show up, I get in it, I drive it. They put the motor in it, whatever, So, yeah, my dad might let me race Nashville in his car again, which that was a lot of fun. Nashville was a lot of fun. So, I do want to show this to you guys and gals, though, for you have not seen Madera Speedway. This is Madera Speedway out in Madera, California. And I'm not kidding, guys and gals. Right here is a Panda Express. Like, this is the racetrack. And if you can see my mouse, this is the racetrack. Over here's Panda Express, right? There we go. That shows it a little bigger. Right there up to the top left of the corner, the little food arrow, that's a Panda Express. Okay. So if you take Madera Speedway here, now this is the other thing I want to point out. You see these haulers right here? All of that is blacktop, which is awesome for having a pavement car. But last year it was 107 fucking degrees. And that asphalt was like 130 in the shade. Yeah. I'm from Michigan. It was 90 out today and I was dying. So 107 on blacktop was something else for me. But it is, the facility at Madera is pretty awesome. But if you hold on, this laptop, if you touch it goofy, it moves my thing around. So this is Madera Speedway, right? As we zoom out here, oh, that's in. If we zoom out, I want to show you guys, it's in town. Like, it's in the middle of Madera is a pretty large town. It's in the middle of town. So, and in talking to the people, it's not in danger, not as much as racetracks in towns around us are. Like, people love Madera Speedway. And yeah, so it's a great place. It's a great track. It's easy to get off the highway, stop at Jack in the Box and get yourself a pack of tiny tacos for breakfast and then shoot over to the racetrack. May or may not done that every day that I went over there, but Gary says, I put the heat gun on the blacktop last year at 155. Yeah, Sean DePriest there, he put his heat gun infrared. Mind you, he was just standing from like hip height. The sun was 148 and the shade was, I think, 121. Like the shade under his canopy was 120. So, yeah. I'm going to get me a cool suit before I head out there next year. So, Travis says, high-rise single-plane carbureted. A guy near me builds the LS Arca motors, 364 cubes, and they make just over 600 on his dyno. The LS, the Arca motors, the Ilmor engines are a different beast. So Arca's doing some goofy stuff, but yeah, it sounds like Drew's not big on the motor specs in the sprint car. It's just the motor that's in the sprint car. So I love it. I do. So, what are the plans for the rest of the year here? We're going to run the sprint car some more. We're going to get the Civic back out. We're going to just retire now that we've won the pinnacle of racing, or what?
So we have Pink Lady Classic. That's in September. So towards the end of September. Then we have the Showdown in Vegas in December. So that will be wing sprint cars.
Oh yeah.
So we've signed up.
That's the like $1 million race or whatever it is.
Yep. So we've signed up for the wing sprint cars and the midgets for that. So we'll be doing that. As far as like the mini stock racing this year, like honestly, Olga is like the big race that we look forward to all year. Now it's time to get the real Olga race car ready. Snowflake was the backup car, to be honest, that we won in. So the real car is behind me that we didn't get finished. So hopefully we get it tuned and get going. So
You want to share the details on it, or do we have to wait till you get it done?
No, it's just like honestly, like that's one of my things that like about racing. So I don't have any secrets. Like legitimately, like anyone can come down to me and ask me what I have done to my car, and I will tell you. I don't care. I want everyone to go faster. I want everyone to get better. Like I want to race the best, and if I can help you to get better or have someone else help me to get better, that's what I want to do. So all I have, it's a Honda Civic hatchback with a K-Series in it with a 6-speed transmission. Nothing crazy, nothing like out of the ordinary. It's just kind of the K-Series or the new B-Series. They're cheap, they're easy to find, they're not hard to work. Well, they're harder to work on because I'm not used to them, but they're not hard to work on. Like they're reliable.
They make power.
Cars. Yeah, they make
good power.
They actually make torque, which B series don't do that. So like torque's a weird thing. So, but no, like legitimately, like that's like everyone's like, oh, whatever. I'm like, honestly, like I was trying to help a couple of the guys down at the end this year to get faster. I'm like, hey, are you left foot braking? Or like, hey, add a little bit of tow to your vehicle or whatever I can do to, if you go 1/10 quicker and I helped you do that, that's a win. So, I've had lots of help from people doing the same thing to me, so I just try to pay it forward. So
you and I have the same mentality. Mine sounds more egotistical. If I race against you and I beat you, I want to know, and I want you to know that there was nothing you could do to beat me. I want to give you the fastest car possible so that at the end of the day, if I win and you finish second, you can't go home and be like, well, if I had this and I had that and this was wrong and this was wrong. I don't want that. Like, I want to know I was the best that day. And the fun part is I have this that I do, and I still get accused of, oh, well, you won't tell us what's really in it. And I'll be like, I did a 2-hour and 40-minute show where I pointed the camera, not at this one, at my old car, and I went nose to tail and told you everything about it. I told you what cams I'm running, pistons, head, intake, clutch, transmission, ratio, struts, spring rates, sway bars, everything. I have done shows where I scale my car live. I've done it with my dad's. Like, I want you to know what I'm doing and wonder why it works and why I'm beating you. Like, I want to outdrive you. I don't want you to break. I don't want to leave at the end of the day knowing if I would have, oh, you have a half inch of toe in. Oh God. Okay, cool. Good luck with that. Like, no. Oh God. Listen, guys, it'll never turn with that. Here's why. Here's the reasoning. Do this, do that. I want that. Like,
Yep.
it just, I tried to be an athlete in school and I wasn't good at it. Like, this racing is the one thing I have found I am as good or better than the people that I do it with. And I take it seriously. I want you to be your best. Like, I can't use my left hand for anything. So like dribbling a basketball, stuff like that. Like, I'm too big to run and not fast enough for football and stuff like that. Like, racing's it. Give me a machine and I can better you. So yeah, but I still get accused of gatekeeping stuff. And I'm like, I have 250 videos of me telling you what I do. Like, so yeah, I've got a couple things I'm doing to this one that if you're a subscriber, you might have seen, but there's some things that I have a habit of having rules written against some of the new stuff that I do. So I'm trying to not have it outlawed before I race the car. So there's some stuff that's on the down low, but once we get the car out, we'll talk about it. So, and it's not secret, like people know, it's just not public yet. So, and Jonathan says, I was one of those guys at Madera and have been for years. Drew is always down to help. And Brian says, Drew, can we go 101 laps next year? That was the only help that would have helped me.
I don't think I could have coasted 2 laps. So.
Oh man, that's where you would have needed Gary instead of getting the cones to just get behind you and help you across the line or something like that. It's a team effort at that point. So, which even Brian's story, which if Brian was driving a right wheel drive, instead of a wrong wheel drive, like we'd have talked to him last year because his story was pretty cool for winning last year. They had to tear the head off and put a head gasket in it, and the motor was all down, and Terry Anderson blows his car up, hops in and Brian's and blows it up, and then they rebuild it, and he goes out and wins the thing. Like, this race has some awesome stories that happen. Like, it's pretty cool. And every year, a front-wheel drive is battling for the win. Last year, Cross was right there with them. The year before, Freddie and Justin were going at Terry. Apparently, the first year wasn't. I haven't watched the first year, but, we stopped letting those guys show up, so now it's cool. But what is some place that you wish you could race? What's a realistic bucket list track for you to take the front wheel drive?
Like we were talking a little bit before, like Bristol, like that was our original plan 6-7 years ago when they kind of started talking about it. That was the original plan until we realized how freaking far away it is. So I don't know when we're going to, or if we're ever going to, but Bristol front wheel drive, definitely one of my bucket list tracks I would love to turn some laps in. So
yeah, you're gonna have to add some weight and put an exhaust or an intake restrictor in it. I can tell you that much. But yeah, guys and gals, I have no inside information. I don't know anything more than any of you know. But if they do Bristol again on pavement, and you have ever wanted to go, for the love of heavens, put a car together that meets the rules of whatever it is and go, because it might not happen again. I told guys for 5 years to do it. Not Drew, because I didn't talk to Drew then, but I have friends that on year 6, they were going to go. They're building the car and they didn't have a year 6. So if Bristol's that track for you, if they do it again, there's hope. The rumors, the dirt's not coming back. If that doesn't happen, then the short track nationals have the opportunity to come back. If that happens, the front wheel drives have the opportunity. So there's stuff that has to happen. It's a possibility. I miss it. It is. I told Drew we can talk about this for 2 weeks. If it happens again, guys and gals, drive the distance and go. Brian, ask your front wheel drive question, man. Me and Drew gotcha. What you need? We'll answer. Have you ever ran a locked transmission in your front wheel drive on pavement? We talked about, I was going to ask you that earlier with the old locked LSD. Have you ever ran one that's locked?
So I did drag racing. All I did was explode stuff. So it just literally it doesn't work. Like it doesn't, because you have to turn and it doesn't like it. So yeah, it's bad.
I don't know if Madera for 100 laps, but I have a transmission that I welded up that I put a hole in the bell housing when the clutch exploded that I had. So my theory was, if it grenades, it's already bad. I won like 6, 7, 8 races with that tranny, and if you get the stagger right, good golly, Miss Molly, it works. Especially some of like Kalamazoo is just a big circle. It's not like Springport's long straightaways, so the stagger fights it, but Kalamazoo isn't. You get that stagger right, and I've never had such an easy driving good car. However, get your stagger wrong, and you hate life because it won't turn or it turns way too much, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I like my limited slip. I run one now, but I do have that welded one, and I don't know, maybe we'll bring it to Madera just to try things out. So, yeah, I need some big sponsors to make front wheel drive racing again at Bristol. Still expensive. It's just expensive to put that event on in general. So, how does the Duratec stuff run back your way? Stock or not stock? Because we have some the stock Duratec stuff. The issue with Ford front wheel drives is the suspension. A lot of like the focuses and stuff like that, you can't adjust camber very well at all because it's the strut goes through the knuckle. There's not a way to get camber, which on dirt isn't as big a deal, but on pavement, if you can't get 5, 6 degrees, you're getting lapped by guys that are. So there are a few guys that run well, especially run them on dirt. The last I knew, Essingler was doing some pretty crazy stuff with them and they can make some really serious power out of them. So they do okay. And I might shoot you a message, Brian, because I think I know a couple guys running some in some rear wheel drive stuff, but I can't actually say they are because I don't actually know and I don't want to misinform anybody. So I'll shoot you a message. You can reach out to them. This isn't like to ask them because I think they run them in some rear wheel drive applications. But yeah, they can run well. It's not a bad motor. It's just the chassis is the problem for front wheel drive racing with that. That's why certain cars are really popular for front wheel drives. Neons, independent 4-wheel suspension, twin cam, they handle well, they adjust well. There's a bunch of them. Hondas, you can get some camber out of them. They make every part you can imagine for them. You can buy them. They got swaps. You can make them have a lot of power fairly easy. Hondas are easy to build. Don't come at me. They are because of the parts availability. But like Focuses are really hard to build for pavement in any sort of built class. And then the imports like Kias and Hyundais and stuff kind of get into that weird thing where the suspension might be good, but you can't get any go fast parts for them, or you can't tune the computer, or there's just lists of individual reasons why. But that's why you see a lot of Ecotec powered cars, a lot of K-Series powered cars, and then a lot of the Neons. That's why those are popular. So, yeah, Marvin, I couldn't remember. He's the one that I was talking about. It's not a secret. I just don't want to throw names out if I'm not right. So, yeah. What is the I literally had this question as I read that. Man, ADHD, right? You know what I told you I was going to ask you to begin with to do and completely forgot? You remember what I said I was going to try to do in the beginning, Drew?
Yeah, I do.
Who helps you? Who helps you get to the track? Who's your sponsors? Who's your crew help? Who's the behind the scenes help? Who helps Drew go run these races, win these races? Who's the crew? Who's the sponsors?
So as far as like, honestly, we talked about Mike a little bit. So 68 Anderson Racing, huge help. That's who I drive the sprint cars for. He helps us get out to the mini stock races. He drives the mini stock for me. So it's just pretty cool. So I tell him I'll take care of the mini stocks. He takes care of the sprint cars. I think it's a fair trade. So as far as sponsors go, like we really don't have sponsors, to be honest. We have ourselves, our families. We just work really hard to get where we're at. So my girls come to the racetrack. My wife comes and helps at the racetrack. But we don't have a big laundry list of all these sponsors that support us. We have ourselves, like CG Racing tunes the car. So Courtney Green, Um, Don Trafford, Trafford Racing, he helps us with the suspension. He definitely helped us to get there this year, even with his backup car. His slow car supposedly was the one that the 68, which was the one that Mike raced. So honestly, without just our friends at Meridian Speedway and across the country that helps us, Salt Lake or all over, that's who would shout out for. So if you guys want to sponsor us, we'd love some help. So yeah, so if you guys are looking for anything for sprint cars, wing sprint cars, even mini stocks, like whatever, anything helps. Like, and sincerely, like, you guys don't understand that the littlest thing helps. $20, $50, a thumbs up, liking a post. Like, you guys have to realize that a liked post means the world sometimes, and people don't realize that just that little bitty of good juju helps a lot. So
I say that all the time. The only thing I ask of people watching is they hit the like button. It really is, especially when you're trying to get some traction and stuff. Social media is so important that just even interacting with that. Which I need. Does Anderson Racing Net have a Facebook page? Do we have the racing pages in that we can promote?
Yeah, it's 68 Anderson Racing is what it's under. Mike Anderson, if you look him up, that's the racing page is 68 Anderson Racing.
I'm actually going to do it right now. Anderson 68 Racing popped up in my search as I started to go because Facebook's listening. Wing and non-wing sprint car racing. I'm guessing that one's it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hit the like button on this one. So it's kind of cool. There's 3 different sprint cars on it. Actually, the thing I kind of like here is that the 2 non-wing cars have the pretty decent overhead halo bars. Looks like the midget has the bigger ones, and the sprint car has them too. I know that's something, watching some crash tests and that with the sprint cars and seeing how some people have really done. Like, that was something that I always wondered, was how there wasn't more like bars on top and around in the A-pillar and that. So,
well, Mike's like 6'5", so he's a big dude. So like, yeah, so I have to have a halo in the midget, but like for Mike, he has to have the halo in the midget. And literally any sprint car that he gets into, we have to add the halo to it. So
gotcha. Because otherwise, 3 inches of helmet sticking out isn't good. So
no, very dangerous.
So yeah. Where is somewhere you would like to race the sprint car that you haven't yet, that you feasibly could?
Honestly, like we went to Eureka this year, which is a very interesting track, very cool, very, very fast. I'd like to go to something kind of that same style of racetrack, just more than 2 lanes. Eureka is like a 2-lane racetrack, like that's really it. But I would really, honestly, like racing at any track. I don't have any track that I'm like, this is what I have to do. If I get the opportunity to drive anything at any track at any time, I'm down. Like, I just love driving, to be honest. Like, any opportunity I would just love. So
I understand that one, especially with your varied background. I have a track, and it's just out there by you guys a little farther. I'll get there eventually because I need one of them checks. I've won, this is not a brag, I've won 96 A mains in a front wheel drive car. I still don't have one of those. I've never won a big check. I've won steering wheels. I've won piston trophies, like made out of metal and pistons. I've won 6-foot tall trophies. I even won a bottle of rum. I've won a lot of different things. I still don't have a big check. All those wins, no big check. So I got to come out. I'll have to come out to Madera to get one there. That's what I got to get. So I want to introduce you to a track. You talk about fast, kind of a driver's track, and wide. It's about 3 hours away from Anderson. They only run sprint cars a couple times a year. They run front wheel drives more often. But you may have heard of this. Let me get it up here. Google Maps. Welcome to Berlin Raceway. So Berlin, here in Michigan, let's make this as big as we can. Okay. Berlin is like a, I think they call it like a 7/16, something like that. This track is very, very interesting because turns 1 and 2 up here at the top, rounds fairly easy. There is the kink in the backstretch, but it's kind of a natural kink. It's not that big a deal. Turns 3 and 4 down here at the bottom are 2 completely different corners. You turn into turn 3, go through the center, and then between turns 3 and 4, you turn again to exit turn 4. And right about where that, if you can see my arrow here, right about where this concrete here is on the track, there used to be a giant drain. And there's still a large bump there, and the object is to hit it. And when you do, your car goes up in the air and it slides to the right, but it's the fastest way around. And this place is fast, wide, a driver's track, and I apologize to anyone else watching that disagrees with me. It's probably the nicest facility in the state as a spectator. It's the fairgrounds in Martin, Michigan. So something to think about. If you're around this way, and they run sprint cars, they run the traveling series, the traveling sprint cars. They do wing and non-wing, so something to think about.
There you go.
A little bit of. It's about 27 hours away from Boise is the problem.
Not that bad. Just 1 day's trip. We can do it. So
yeah. I looked because I Googled Boise to see how far it was, and yeah, it's 27 hours. It's only 1,800 miles from my house over there. So. Yeah,
not too bad.
May not be a track for long. They approved a bunch of condos being built around it. Yeah, the thing I think Berlin has going for it is that it is grandfathered in like crazy. It gets a ton of money, and it's the fairgrounds. I think that's what it has going for it. But as we all know, it's a fight when people start coming near our stuff. So, but. All right, Drew, I got one more for you here. If any of you guys have any questions, we're nearing the end here. So if you do have some questions for Drew, throw them down there. I told you had to get ready for this one, and you told me you weren't sure. You'd have to think about it. So I ask everybody the same questions. I need to know your favorite memory in racing and your least favorite memory from racing.
So my least favorite memory, it took a little bit of thinking after you asked the question for me the first time. So probably like 7 years ago, I was racing a crate sprint car. One of my buddies was actually in front of me, took the checker flag. Right when he took the checker flag, the car in front of him slammed on the brakes at the same time as he took the checker flag, jumped his left rear tire and went cage first, like upper of the top of the cage first into the fence. So Bob Bachman, if you're listening, you probably aren't, but that's was one of the scariest things I've ever, because I actually watched it happen. Like I was, like you were saying, like I was literally behind watching one of my friends go cage first into a catch fence. He was okay. He had a concussion and a little bit of like soreness the next day, but that's the last time he's actually ever driven the sprint car. Was that last time he went to the fence top first? So that's probably.
Was it because of that accident?
Yep.
Was that the reason why? Was because of that?
Yeah, he wants to drive a sprint car. Just the doctor said if you do this again, you might not live to ever race again, or drive again, or do anything again. So he just helps with sprint cars on the track all the time now, which is really awesome. So, but yeah, he hasn't driven in a long time. So,
that's, I mean, it's a good reason not to get back in a car like that. Yeah. All right. So favorite memory.
So actually my favorite memory was 2 years ago. We went out to the Little 500. Mike Anderson, the guy that I drive the sprint cars for, he couldn't get his car to work. So he was like super pissed. He goes, Drew, go put on your freaking fire suit, put on your helmet, get my effing car, and let's figure out what's wrong with this car. So never driving a 410 sprint car before ever in my life. I don't know what I'm doing. He says, here's the steering wheel. Go figure it out. Tell me what's wrong. I have never smiled that big in my entire life. To be able to push a gas pedal half throttle and blow the tires off this car. And still, I think I ran like an 11.9 around Anderson the very first time I drove it. And the car wasn't even like working right. And I didn't stop smiling for the rest of the week. Like literally someone trusts me enough to throw me the steering wheel, go drive it, figure it out, have fun. Let's make the car go faster. That's probably one of my best memories at a racetrack is that.
Let's also not forget that it's not like you were blowing some 185, 70 14s off either. I mean, it's like a 18-inch wide right rear, 12-inch wide, 14-inch wide left rear, and half throttle will blow them up. But I mean, a sprint car is like 1,900 pounds, aren't they?
Yeah, they're pretty light. So, but still, it's 900 horsepower like that. Yeah. Like it's just ridiculous. So.
You know what the fun thing is, and I really upset a sprint car guy one time when I said this. If you do the math, this car will have it, but the last motor I had in the old car was making more horsepower per cubic inch than a 410 sprint motor. And he got real mad because the guy was trying to make fun of us, saying something about this or that. And I says, cubic inch for cubic inch, we make more power than you do, right? And he says, oh, man, shit, these things are 900 horsepower. And I'm like, yeah, out of 410 cubic inches. I'm like, that's 220 at the wheels, not the crank, out of 122 cubic inches. So if you go back to the crank and you do the math, we're better than you. That guy was mad. He was mad, real mad, because they spend a lot of money on them 410 motors and, can't make what a Honda or a Neon does per cubic inch. But they still have the edge. 900 beats 230 every day, especially when they weigh the same, Yep. Just while I got you here and I can share this with you, the reason that Drew had said, like we had talked, because I do tell my guests I'm going to ask those questions. Those are the ones that everything else is just a conversation. I didn't preload Drew with much of anything, but I told him the story about my worst memory is watching my best friend Mike roll his car directly in front of me. And I said how there's pictures of it. Well, here's the pictures of it. This is still the craziest thing that's kind of happened to me. You can see, so the white car right here in front on the bottom on the right, the blue car behind it is my buddy Mike. The orange and black car behind him is me. That's how close we were. And this green and blue car that's to his right, that's whose wheels he jumped. As you can see, the 27 completely sideways, which the blue and green car helped him do, because you can kind of see in this photo and this photo and that photo how it all started, right? You can see Mike in the blue and white there. But as we're coming through, this is the progression of it. And then my mom realized that it was Mike rolling and forgot to hit the shutter. This was after he bounced off the inside wall. That's me behind the blue and green car there. Stopped because if anybody was going to hit Mike, they were going to have to go through me to do it. I didn't realize there was nobody else back there, but those are my thoughts. And he ended up landing on the wheels. That's what happened right in front of me. So that's why we both kind of understand that. I watched him do that right in front of me. Now, the nice part is Mike was probably the only driver in the field of front-wheel drives that year that had a containment seat. His uncle works in NASCAR. He got an old NASCAR containment seat. So he had a full containment seat and was perfectly fine. That car went on to win a bunch of races, ripped off 9 straight, won a championship with another racer, got sold to another racer. They just rebodied it. So car went on to live. He was okay. But yeah, shared experience. All right. My dad wants to know if your father raced any. Did your dad race any?
So that's kind of the funny thing is like my dad wasn't into cars. Like none of my family's into cars. When I was 15, I had a Cadillac Fleetwood, like sound system stuff. I ended up wrecking that car when I turned 16, and I bought a Honda Civic. And literally, like, I met my wife street racing. Like, I literally, like name it, like, ever since I turned 16, cars have kind of been my life. Like, everyone I've met, everything I do is involving cars at some level. which is pretty cool. Like I said, made friends across the country. Yeah, it's pretty awesome what cars can do. So yeah, no, my dad didn't race cars. Like I didn't know anyone that raced cars. Like I played baseball and soccer, and I did all those normal sports, and I was pretty good at all of them. And the funny thing, this is funny, I'll tell you this. So do you know when you go back when you're a kid, right? And they have like your dreams when you're 5 years old or whatever it is. So like we found one of mine a couple years ago. So when I was 5 years old, my goal was to be a race car driver, right?
Okay.
To have a wife or to get married and to own a go-kart track, right? So when I'm 5 years old, I wanted to be a race car driver. I had no idea. Like, and I look at that, I just laugh. I'm like, look at me now. I'm like, I am a race car driver. Like,
you're 66% away. 66%. I think the business you started wasn't a go-kart track, was it?
No, that would have been awesome. Though.
Okay, so we're 66% of the way towards all of your life goals. I mean,
yeah. When I was 5 years old, like this is awesome.
Yeah.
So, but
the reason I flashed this comment up here, this is my father. If you guys don't know, I'm Todd Metz Jr. This is my dad. When I was 5, I wanted to be a farmer, like my dad, and his dad, and his dad, and probably his dad. When I was 14, I went and hung out with my uncle and got a ride in a 69 Chevelle that changed my life, because when a bored and stroked big block that's close to 600 cubic inches roars to life in front of you and pins you to the seat, it changes you. It's a religious experience. I brought my dad into racing. I raced for a year. My dad started after that. A cousin on my mom's side, one of my mom's cousin, ran dirt for a few years. That's it. Nobody else in my family did anything to do with motorsports at all. Although we did find out my aunt's now husband, way back in the day, ran a modified like 20 years before he met my aunt, so doesn't really count. Yeah, same thing. No involvement at all. I turned 14, was introduced to Mother Mary of horsepower, and here we are. I had a friend who came from Australia to hang out, to do race car stuff because of cars. So when you talk about how, coast to coast, Mr. Ben Ferris flew from Australia. Well, technically flew into Canada and then drove to Michigan, and it rained all weekend. So all we did was have a late night where we worked on a race car. He never got to drive, but he came from Australia to hang out because of cars. So yeah. My uncle did drag race, but as you know, like it's like 8-10 seconds, whatever, I do love that you threw that out there, that you had that where, hey man, you want to come drive stock car? And you're like, oh yeah, cool. I'll turn left for a bunch of times. That'll be awesome. And then you did it and you're like, you know what? This is some shit. This is okay. All right.
Well, everyone always asks, like, because I've done pretty much everything. Like, literally, I've a dirt race. I've done everything. I'm like, what is the cheapest motorsport to do? I'm like, by far, Hornet Racing. So mini stock, the lesser version of a mini stock is the cheapest racing, bang for the buck. Because, like, honestly, you can go do it for a couple $1,000. Like, honestly, and you spend
$1,500 of it's safety gear.
No, that's what I was saying. I'm like, you spend more money on safety gear than you do on the whole car. So, and anyone out there that's listening, don't cheap on safety gear. Buy good safety gear. I was going to say the other story. So, and actually another bad thing that happened. So my wife used to race mini stocks with us too, down in Salt Lake.
Okay.
So she was in front of me. Courtney Green, actually, they came and collided into each other, like ran into each other, and it shot my wife up into the wall. But when she launched into the wall, she was going about like 80 miles per hour, launched into the wall, nose first, hit the wall. She hit the wall so hard that the right front tire ended up inside the cage, like inside the car.
Wow.
So the only thing that happened to her, though, was she broke her big toe. Like, that's it. So she had a Hans on. She had the right seatbelt, the seatbelts on correctly. That's the other thing. I'm going to say this. If you're racing, please make sure your seatbelts are tight enough. Like, if you can breathe, they're not tight enough. Everyone thinks that they need to be
ratchet
loose.
Belts are amazing. Have you used ratchet belts? Have you used the ratchet lap belts?
Yep.
Brother.
So, yeah. So in one of the sprint cars, we had them, but they're really expensive to recertify. So,
dude, so the new race quips, so this is hookers and stuff like that are really expensive. Crows are not. Crows are only like $200 and some to start with, and the new race quips, I'll look them up real quick. I think they're under $200 for a brand new set. So like that's actually what's going in this car. I have a set Tuesday. We just talked about them, and I was showing them off. They're 2-inch shoulders for the head and neck, 3-inch with the ratchet. I think they're under. I think they're under $200 now.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I know. I think the first set we got were like 350. They were a lot.
The hooker harnesses, which is like they were like the name for a long time. They were like $425, $450, stuff like that.
I knew it was super expensive, but
$205 it looks like is list price for the race quip ratchet belts.
Nice.
So yeah,
safety, you guys out there, safety, it's very, very important. Like without good safety equipment, you can get hurt really, really, really bad. So, and it's not if, it's when. Everyone's gonna wreck.
It blows my mind to this day how many people don't get it. I mean, I do this show and I get told all the time I'm fear mongering, I'm profiting off from all this negativity and all this. I posted the video of that kid or photo of the kid coming out of the midget car at the Chili Bowl. I received literal death threats for that, by the way. Literally received death threats for that. But the amount of people that post seen, which was nuts. That post was seen by over 1 million people, by the way. I got messages from people who I would never, ever interact with my content because they're not front-wheel drive guys, they're not this and that. They never understood why this safety stuff was so important until it was spelled out for them. And the amount of times I've done that for people and changed. We had a front-wheel drive driver pass away last year, and I did a show where we talked about it. Unfortunately, it was one of my highest viewed videos, and we talked about it. And I said, I'll put my money where my mouth is. The next show we're doing, I will show you guys why this stuff matters. I brought a seat out. I brought belts out. I did a 2-hour plus show where I talked about why seat belts matter, why mounting them matters, why wearing them matters, how putting them on your seat, using your seat as a pivot where the belts go up into the seat and moves everything. I got a message from a guy who didn't realize how unsafe his car was until that show. He decided to stop racing until he fixed it. He went out, he bought a containment seat. He bought one of the cheaper Kirky seats. It wasn't even a high dollar one. Bought a Kirky seat, bought a head and neck, bought new belts, put it all in the car. Took 2 weeks off from racing. The next time he brought the car out, a racing incident, he got hooked head on into the wall. And he messaged me to tell me that he was absolutely certain that had that happened 2 weeks prior, he'd be dead because of how unsafe his car was because he didn't know. It still blows my mind the amount of people that will argue with me. I've never had a problem before. That's cool. Dale Sr. only needed a head and neck one time.
Yep.
You know, part of this too, my dad he didn't like his head and neck. He had an open face helmet that he liked to wear. Vor's Compact Touring Series mandated a head and neck. This is my dad's race car.
Oh my God.
From Shady Bowl Speedway. Shady Bowl is not one of the fastest tracks we race at. It's fast, but mind you, Winchester and Lucas Oil and Bristol is the exact same transmission as this, but it's third gear instead of second to give you a speed clues. Dad crossed the start finish line, and the guy that was a lap or two down was upset and hooked him in the right rear. Dad was still in the throttle when he hit the wall. his right rear is touching the cage. Like the metal squished flat, his right front is touching the cage there. That car is over 3 foot shorter than it started that race. That was the first race my dad ever wore a head and neck because it was mandated. That's the only reason he wore it. So when I say this shit is personal, it's personal.
Yeah.
Because if he lived, he wouldn't walk right. He'd be in a lot more pain than he is now. His life would be drastically different. He finished 6th. I finished 5th. We crossed the start-finish line, and I crossed it, and I went into turn 1, and I heard Dan Redmond start screaming over the receiver about a wreck on the front stretch, and I'm turning, and I can't see, and as I come around out of turn 3, I see my dad in that car sitting on the front stretch wall. So this shit's personal to me.
Yeah.
So you get it.
I do get it.
I like you, Drew. We have a lot in common. We're gonna have to talk more because I can only imagine how scary that had to have been in a wreck with your wife to see that in the aftermath and the relief that you would have had knowing how okay she was because of the safety gear. So, and I tell people all the time, and you guys think I'm crazy for it. If you can't afford safety gear, you can't afford to race, take a week, take a year off. You notice how this car is sitting back here undone? I haven't raced at all this year because I couldn't afford it. I took a year off, essentially. The year's not over yet. I'm still hoping to race some. If you can't afford it, if you can't afford good safety gear, don't race.
Yep.
Get good safety gear. If you don't do it for you, do it for the 8-year-old kid in the grandstand that doesn't want to have to stare you in the eyes as you go lifeless in front of you, okay? Something to think about. Because have you ever seen the video of the guy catching on fire at Anderson? Have you ever seen that? The front-wheel drive?
No.
I've shared it. I'll try to find it and send it to you. A guy ran over something on the track and it pierced his gas tank and lit on fire. And he pulled to a stop in turn 2 in the infield and burned. He lived, I haven't checked on his condition in a while. But he had some very, very, very serious burn. And one of the videos is from a fan in the grandstands who is not affiliated with that car in any way. They were just filming. And you can hear people in the grandstands terrified worse than they've ever been, screaming and yelling, get him out, get him out. Oh God, he's going to die. Get him out, because they thought they were watching somebody get killed because of this fire. And these weren't his crew. They weren't his friends. They weren't his family. It was people in the grandstands. You can hear people crying and screaming. And that's a memory they're always going to have is that guy caught on fire. Luckily he lived, but that's stuff that it sticks with you. If you've ever seen some shit like that, it doesn't go away. My first trip ever to Spartan Speedway, I watched Stan Perry die. He died of a heart attack. He had a heart attack going into turn 1. And in the center of turn 1, he just let go of the wheel. And when he hit the wall coming out of turn 2, full throttle in a Super Outlaw late model, according to the people that were standing in front of the wall that watched him come in, he wasn't with them when he hit it. So that was my first ever trip to Spartan Speedway, was watching that happen. Yeah, they didn't tell us then that he had passed away, but yeah, he went out doing what he wanted. So props to that. He didn't take anybody else with him, but it was bad. So yeah. So thank you for talking about the safety stuff. I usually ask people for a tech tip. I forgot to warn you. It's kind of late. You can give one if you like, but I had to start telling people they couldn't say safety because everybody started copping out and going, get safety gear. So do you have a tech tip you'd like to pass off to anybody? If somebody came to you and says, I want to get started front-wheel drive racing, or I want to get faster front-wheel drive racing, you got a tech tip you could share with people that isn't buy good safety gear?
Just seat time. Honestly, it doesn't matter what you're out there driving. Just go drive. Like, go race go-karts, go anything to get you behind the wheel of anything. Go to practice. Like if your track has Thursday night practices like we do, we go out I used to go out every single Thursday night and practice no matter what. You have to drive the car that you want to win in. And if you don't go practice, you won't win. So just seat time.
There are some natural born talents in the world, but your name's not Ayrton Senna. So you probably could use some practice. I I liked earlier too when you said where you'd ask somebody, "Are you left foot braking?" That's another one that I've had people argue with me on, and like, "Oh, I can't do that." And I'm like, "How can you not use both feet in a race car?" And then they argue with me how they're better than me as a race car driver, and I'm like, "It's nothing personal, man, but I can read the scoreboard going down the backstretch and use both feet, and you can't do either thing. I might have you on this one, you know."
If you don't know how to left foot brake, you've never driven a car that doesn't know how to turn. So that's like one of the biggest things.
Brother.
So yeah.
I like you. Do you know how much hate I get for saying you need good brakes? And everyone's like, "Hey, Jesse, you need the brakes. I barely touched that." And I'm like, if you don't need the brakes where you race, you either don't need to lift or you're not going fast enough. Like, you show me a race series that doesn't use brakes, and I'll show you some train racing at a super speedway. You know, just saying. So I got to ask you something. I need to know if I have a one up on you. You've done all of this racing everywhere. You said you went road racing. Have you, if the fourth place was your best qualifying effort, when you were doing the road racing stuff, did you qualify, and did you qualify well there? Like, what was your best as far as like your track records on road racing?
So road racing, we did endurance racing. So it wasn't, you didn't qualify. Okay. So we did
so like chump car,
the Lucky Dog series is what we did.
Okay.
So like our best time, like around Laguna Seca, was like a 2:01, I think. I don't know. We have it written in the living room with our best time. Oh, actually, it's right there. What does that say above you, Mom? The Brittany. We name all our cars too. We have so many cars that we name them all. So, 151 around Laguna Seca. So, but like we've won, like we did a series down at UMC in Salt Lake, and we won like 3 or 4 trophies that weekend, because it's like it's broken up into like different categories. So but endurance racing, dude, the fun part about endurance racing, like we blew up a motor at Portland. The dude's like, "Are you done for the day?" I'm like, "No, we'll be back out in less than an hour." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, and it's pouring rain. It's a monsoon. Yeah. And I'm like, "Dude, we'll be back out in an hour." Like literally in 45 minutes, we had the motor out, motor back in, back out on the track. So it's all about like the experience. It's not about winning. It's just experience.
I'm a big motorsports fan, so I know all about, chump car and, 24 hours of lemons and stuff like that. And I've always wanted to get it together. The problem is I need friends like yours that want to do it as well and have the capability, because my friends are like, "Sounds cool. I would do it if you can get it around." And I'm like, "I need you to help." So I had to ask that, because I've ran a road course race in my stock car. We went to Gingerman Raceway here in Michigan, and I hold the track record for that series because I was top qualifier on that road course. I finished third in the race, which I still don't know how I did, because my left front strut started going from positive to negative to positive camber, depending on the way I was turning. And I was trying to get one last event out of my Carbotech brake pads, and halfway through they stopped working. And Gingerman isn't really a place you want that to happen, because there's a long straightaway followed by a 90-degree turn into a long straightaway. Kind of need some brakes. I managed to finish third somehow, but I hold the track record there to this day. And I don't know if the series is ever going back, which would mean I get to hold that track record in perpetuity on a road course. So
that's awesome.
It's a little thing that I just think is neat. Nobody else gives a shit. I went to PRI and I was talking to Gingerman, like they had a booth, and I was like, "Hey, I hold a track record at your course." And the lady's like, "Really? What class?" And blah, blah, blah. I was like, "Actually, with, the Midwest Compact Touring Series." And she's like, "Oh, when did you guys race there?" I was like, "Oh, thanks." Like, and then she, talking to her, she remembered, and the other guy remembered and stuff. And "Oh yeah, that was cool. We liked it," because they did a 2-hour enduro as well. So they had 2 hours of the guys racing around. It was a lot of fun. I loved it. Loved the track, but nobody cares but me. And it's just, it's a fun thing I get to throw out, that I hold a couple track records, and one of them's at a road course. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, well, brother, we've been doing this almost 2.5 hours. It isn't that late where you're at, but it's a little after 11 where I'm at. So I got to thank you for coming on tonight, man. I asked Drew if he wanted to come on, and his response was immediately yes. Like that was his first response was yes. So thanks for coming on, man. I was really happy to meet you guys last year. Congratulations on the win. You definitely need to go look at your lap times because I'm telling you the consistency in that race was killer. It was something that I was very impressed to see from somebody who can lay down fairly consistent laps. What you were doing was insane. How consistent you were in the second half of that race. So congratulations on that. I got one last question. Did you do something fun with the win money, or did it just kind of get put in the bank for moving forward with paying for stuff? Did you go do something fun with it that you're like, man, I got all this extra. Let's get kicked out of a Waffle House or something? Like do something fun with it.
So kind of like the funny story is like I got a phone call Friday morning about my job. So it kind of just went into savings. So we will do something fun with it eventually when we get in a little bit better situation. But yeah, no, all the cards fell in the right place, dude. We will do something fun with it. But right now it's just a little security blanket for the family. So
I get it. I have a car owner, so when I win big stuff, I hand it to him. But the nice part is when I do things like blow them up, I don't have to pay for that. So it is a trade-off. Like we win 1,000, 2,000 win race or something, and I got to hand that to Earl. Like it stings slightly, but at the same time, like last year when I snapped the camshaft in my motor and wiped a lot of stuff out, I didn't pay for that. So it works out. It works out pretty well sometimes. As you know, with the sprint car, if something gets expensive and you're like, hey, cool, thanks. It'll be fixed when I come back. All right, good.
Yep.
So yeah, you get it. So safety net isn't fun, but it's necessary. So I understand that. Being logical with it sometimes is the way to go. So you're the defending winner at this point. I assume we're going to see you out there for the 5th annual. Bend all 4 of them, the 5th annual next year. We're going to see you there.
Yeah, we'll be here. We'll be there. It'll be awesome. So, honestly, guys, we talk about it, but watching, liking, anything helps. If you can make it out there, like you said, it's one of the best races out there. Do want to give Justin props. Justin Carson, he did have a baby girl. That's why he didn't show up. So, so next year he'll be out there. But congratulations to Molly and Justin for having a child. So,
I noticed that he wasn't there on all the race monitor stuff, and I almost messaged him like, dude, what's up? Because I had talked to him. Justin I had messaged a couple times, and it was one where I seen he'd posted that his daughter was born. I was like, makes sense, not driving 10 hours away if your wife's about to go in labor. Understandable. So yeah, congratulations, Justin's on the new baby. Listen, I'm telling you guys, this might sound like a dick thing to say, but Frank and I are coming out there next year, and we're going to show you how we do in the Midwest. We're a little heavy, but we bring a little more power in the stock GSR. So we're coming, and we're going to have some fun. I might see if I can get a couple guys to come with me, but we're going to see if we can go front-wheel drives 2 years in a row. But we're done with this Honda stuff. We got to have a year where we get some of the good cars out there too. So I like the friendly stuff. Last year, I probably got asked 12 times where my car was. And when I said that, I couldn't afford to bring it, the second thing I heard was, I really wanted to race against a fast Neon. I was hoping you were going to bring it. Because everybody out there, they're like, dude, Neons are not fast out here. Those are not fast cars. So you say you have one. We wanted to see it. So we're building one to bring out. So I will see you out there next year. I'm trying to run 2 races in 2024. This car is going to be done for. I'm trying to go to the Freedom Factory, show them how we do. And I'm trying to go to Madera. So if you guys are watching and you don't want on a sprint car and a midget and non-wing sprint car and some mini stocks, but you want on a Neon to go to Florida and California, let me know. It's going to be an expensive trip. 8,000 miles of driving for 2 races. So I do have a goal too. You might be able to understand this. I'm going to drive this car in Florida, Michigan, California, and somewhere on the East Coast. I want to try to do it all in 1 year. I don't know if next year will be the year, but I want to say I have driven a Dodge Neon coast to coast, top to bottom of this great country of ours. Madera seems like a great place to do it out west. I got to figure out where I'm going out east, but maybe I can talk some of you guys into coming this way. So
keep us in the loop. So
I will. And trust me, if I find out about Bristol, I'm gonna tell you guys too, because I got to have you guys all come down there and collectively crap your pants like we did. So it's a different. If you'd like, man, on YouTube, go to the Front Wheel Discussion page on YouTube, and there is my in-car video from the only year I finished. I finished third, and it will give you a great idea of the speed. And just keep in mind, everything that you see, every car on that track is going through a 1-inch intake restrictor. And I don't know if you guys realize how small that is, but yeah, I have a 58 millimeter throttle body and I have to run it through a 24.8 millimeter restrictor. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, 120 mile an hour with 1-inch intake restrictor. So, yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So go watch that. It's like 15, 20 minutes long, but you get to watch all 50 laps. It's some great racing. I started like 18th and finished third. So it's a good video. I'm partial to it because it's me, but yeah. Thank you for coming on here, Drew. I really do appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. I honestly could talk to you for another 2 hours, but I got to go to work tomorrow and I got to get up early. So we're going to talk some more at some point. I'm going to try to see if I can't get a gang of you guys on from out west. I being in the Midwest, it's hard to talk to you guys sometimes, the time difference, but I always enjoy talking to my West Coast guys. So we're going to talk to you guys more. Congratulations again on the big win. And yeah, hope the rest of the season goes good for you. So any last words before we sign off here?
No, I appreciate you having me on the show. Like I said, come watch us. If anyone wants to sponsor some cars, everyone can use some sort of sponsorship. So, but again, no, seriously, thank you for having me on the show. Like, it means a lot. Like, it's pretty awesome. So, thanks, Bob, too. Bob Copley for even imagining this. Like, I don't think he gets enough props for how small to how big this is. There was 54 cars pre-registered for the race. 45 cars qualified. Like, that's insane.
And last year, how many was there last year? Like 30?
32. Yeah. Mind
you, year one and year two, there was like 18. And Bob and Kenny Shepard with Madera Speedway, Kenny for believing in this. All of these have been MAV TV filmed races. That is thanks to Kenny and believing in this. We should have talked about this to start when we had, more people. Bob's vision for this. The other part of this as a racer that we didn't touch on that we need to more is what Bob gives to this event that isn't the event. It's getting a Pyrotech helmet for the winner. It's getting Total Seal piston rings on board. And I can't even list all the people. I mean, he got me to send out, God, if I added up, I sent over $1,000 worth of stuff out there. Like, I sent 78 items, all of them $12 or more, plus, some other goodies. Did you see the can koozies? Did Miranda show the cup can koozies, the 10 millimeters?
I didn't see those, no.
I'm gonna have to yell at her. I gotta get them up on the website. I'll show you some other point. But he has a list of stuff that is given away from some major companies, and it's for one race. And Bob puts on one race a year. It's not a series. It's not a track. It's not. This event is so crazy for the extra stuff that happens. Now, I did see Brian post that the thing he missed this year was that tri-tip sandwich. That last year when I was out there, they had barbecue at the concession there that you got Friday night. That was some good stuff. I got over there to get some. That was some good stuff. So, Bob, if you're watching, try to get the tri-tip back, but everything else is perfect. So, Bob, I'm going to try to have Bob on again. We had him on last year, and there was some technical difficulties because I love Bob, but he's not as technologically advanced as everyone else. So it works out great. He's an old school guy, but yeah, it was the things he's doing with his event is he's doing some stuff that nobody else is doing, and he definitely deserves some credit for it. So I'm glad you brought that up, man. So, awesome. Cool. All right, we're gonna say goodnight, everybody. Thanks for being here. Hit the like button on your way out. We're going to try to be live Tuesday with some tech, but I don't know. Maybe we'll do something before then. So thank you all for being here. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.